to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. And so we're going to start tonight with public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening from the board?
No.
I have none.
I just have that tomorrow from 8 to 10 a.m., pancake breakfast at Eagle House.
The only thing I have is that the election is ongoing, so if you haven't gotten to the polls, they are open until 8, so you have, according to this iPad, you have 57 minutes to get to TC Passios and vote if you haven't already done so.
All right. Thank you. From the town manager?
None.
All right, any public comments this evening from the public? Anna?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Anna Lockwood, 91 Main Street. I even have a little handout for everybody.
Oh, excellent.
Because we don't have enough handouts tonight.
We're a little loaded here today.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Anna.
I'm keeping this screwed on. Thanks. Wow, this thing is thick.
So,
Paper.
I have a couple topics. One is a public comment. The other one that is an item on the agenda, the Parmenter Road. I don't know if that's going to be open for discussion, but if not, I'll just make a comment about that while I'm here. But I'll start with my comment, which is regarding the little handout that you have. So I have a feeling the APD and the APDC is going to be a subject at some point today. I was at the APDC meeting last week. And I just want to give it a little context to this board and the public at home about the APD and the APDC and how they came about. So it's more a little bit of a, just educational moment about these two things. The little handout you guys have on hand is very centric to 91 Main Street. It's historical facts about the house that I bought, and it turns out that it had a lot of history that I didn't know at the time. But once I moved here, when we used to drive into Lunenburg, they used to have a sign, now you're entering the Lunenburg Historical District. And before I bought the house, I wanted to see what kind of restriction there were, and at the time there were none. So I went ahead and bought the house. Then I learned a lot about the house, and that house is very rich in history. In fact, the second owner of the town center, the store in the town center, resided in that house, Daniel Putman, and that's on that handout. And he was a big landowner. He donated the land for the church across the street. He was a state representative. He had a cooperage there at some point. They had a tavern, and I think that was before Prohibition, so it was very rich. But what happened, back to the bylaw, so generally speaking, the town center has always had a very rich history of commerce, manufacturing, agriculture, and different services. Blacksmith, where the town pound cottage today is, used to be a blacksmith cottage. It's very diverse in architecture as well. You can find homes that are colonial, Greek Revival, Italianate, which is the former Ebersol's house, Federal style, which there is a nice example here around the corner. There is also very diverse socioeconomic and historically speaking, the town center. You have homes right now that are over 4,000 square feet and houses that are of 1,200 square feet. So, that's one of the ways. But there used to be, the blacksmith shop next to, the biggest landowner of the town center. They were neighbors back then. There was church, has always been churches around, the store, the post office. The Brooks House, they used to have a slaughter shed in the back, probably by where TCP is today. So historically speaking, it was always diverse, very active, very different than what the Shirley Center is. If you drive by the old Shirley Center, it's very quiet. Lunenburg Town Center was never that way. So the planning board back in, I think, the early 2010, 11, they wanted to spur some growth, economical development growth in Lunenburg. And they decided that, the town center would have been a good space to maybe change the zoning from residential, which was at the time, to a mixed-use residential with commercial. And so then they went on to create the village district, what it did was it calls for high-density development and mixed use. And at the same time, with concerns about the historical elements of the town center, they created the APD, the Architectural Preservation District. And they created then a commission within that bylaw, which is the APDC. And the idea is that you could come back and have some of that economic activities that were back then, that I always had, but there would be some preservation of the architecture and some of the history. But the bylaw itself is very broad in language. It's more about, it's not about historic preservation in terms of you can't change a window. It's more about historic preservation on, if you're going to replace a window, make sure you're not putting something that looks like, Boston City Hall. If you're going to, make your house a tavern, like I could technically do again, I want to add an addition to my house, I can do that. I just got to make it that it matches the current style. So that's what that bylaw is, and that's the role of the APDC, according to the bylaw. The APDC also serves as a resource for homeowners, because whenever you get a contractor in an old house, all they want to do is to just put something new, and it's not always that you need. Within the bylaw, there is a administrative review that they can do where the homeowner can come, give them an information about what they want to do, and the people that are serving the APDC can give them feedback on that. So both of these two bylaws work very well together. And the best part is that they actually work well together, and they historically bring Lunenburg Town Center to what it was back then. So I just want to say that that's the extent of the bylaw. But just as everything, not everything you get it right the first time. So it's not something that we should just chuck it out of the window. The last point that I'll make is that the APDC and the APD is a protection to the homeowners. So, it's a protection that I know that the person next door to me, they can, which it's a new house, it's not a contributing property, they're not going to have a parking lot right next to, or destroy the stone wall that's there to just, put a parking lot. So the APDC is actually protection for people that bought houses here. Because we bought houses here knowing they were old, and we like that. So it does serve that purpose too. So when that comes to, to topic later on, I'm sure it will. Just remember that it's just, we got to figure out how to get things working. And the second item on the agenda, is that going to be open for people talking, or should the Perimeter Road?
It's not a public hearing, but we will accept feedback from anyone in the public.
All right, thank you. So that's all. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anna, for that feedback. All right. Any other public comments this evening? No? All right, we do have an announcement. So, again, this is coming, there's a great opportunity for the residents of Lunenburg to recycle your reusables. There's a drive-through reuse and recycling event that's happening this Saturday, November the 12th, from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., and it's happening at the Air Shirley Regional Middle School, located at 1 Hospital Road in Shirley. You can also put in 1 Hospital Road, Devens, to get there if the Shirley address doesn't bring you there. So this is right across from Shirley's town hall, their police station. It's in that cluster of municipal buildings. It's the school right across the street from that. And this is where you can drop off musical instruments in any condition, craft, art, and office supplies, new and like new condition. Any electronics, there may be some fees that apply, specifically to monitors. Kitchen household furnishings, beddings and towels, furniture, and the requirements that items should be clean and in good working condition. And you can also go to the Shirleytown website under news and announcements for more information. So again, that's this Saturday from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Air Shirley Regional Middle School. And most of these are free opportunities to get rid of some things that we all may have laying around the house. Any other announcements from the town manager this evening?
Just that special town meeting is November 15th, next Tuesday, 7 p.m. at the middle school, high school auditorium.
Great, thank you for that. All right, on to our appointments this evening. So we were planning this evening on having a recognition of our beach director, Jen Noss, who served the community for over 30 years. Unfortunately, we do have to reschedule that to a different time when Jen is better able to be here. So that was on the agenda tonight. Again, that was modified today due to that change. So we're going to go to our 710 class tax classification hearing. We have a presentation from the principal assessor, Chris Carroll. Chris.
Hi, everybody. How are you? I don't think we've all met in person. I'm Chris, or CJ Carroll, the principal assessor. Thank you all for coming to the classification hearing. The purpose of the classification hearing is to consider the available tax rate options under property tax classification. This is all based on values that have been submitted and approved by the Department of Revenue. The primary question we'll be answering is whether to maintain a single tax rate, as Lunenburg has in the past, or to adopt a split tax rate. A single tax rate applies a uniform tax rate across all properties, regardless of that property's use, while a split tax rate reduces the share of the tax levy paid by the residential properties and shifts the remainder of that levy to commercial, industrial, and personal property, or CIP, taxpayers. This is primarily done using a residential factor. This residential factor governs the percentage of tax levy to be paid by Class 1 residential properties. A residential factor of 1 results in taxation of all properties at the same rate, which is known as a single tax rate. The split tax rate is when a CIP, commercial, industrial, personal property factor, is increased to as much as 1.5 or 150%, and the residential is a minimum of a 0.65 factor, or 65% of that class's value. If we look at page 2, we can see that the residential class, as of fiscal 2023's values, makes up 92.7077% of the valuation of the town, while CIP makes up 7.29%. When we look at a split tax rate as an option, because of the significant size of the residential class and how small the CIP class is within Lunenburg, we quickly reach the CIP max factor of 1.5, while the factor of residential is only at a 0.961. This results in a levy shift of 89.06% residential and 10.94% CIP. The corresponding tax rates would be 14.05 for residential and 21.93 for CIP. On a percentage basis, this reflects as residential bills seeing approximately 3.9% in savings versus a single tax rate, and CIP tax bills increasing by 50% versus a single tax rate. It is mentioned on page 5, but I thought it would be relevant to mention now that that single tax rate calculated based on these numbers is 14.62. Now to go over some of the numbers regarding the levy for the year. Fiscal 22's levy was $27,131,063. When we add the state max of 2.5% and new growth for fiscal 2023 of $234,383, we reach a possible levy limit for fiscal 23, $28,043,723. When we add debt exclusions to that, the maximum allowable levy for this year would be $30,875,656. The total amount to be raised for the town this year is $50,128,851.65. These numbers, I should mention, are pending special town meeting next week. But that $50 million number is based on appropriations, which are pending that special town meeting, amounts certified for tax title purposes, the cherry sheet, retirement funds, and the overlay, which is allowances for abatements and exemptions. We take that 50 million number and we subtract the total estimated receipts from other revenue sources. We're left with a tax levy estimate of $30,869,176.82. On page 4, we can see that leaves us with an excess levy capacity of $6,477.18. And below that, you could see a 10-year summary of the excess levy capacity. So this number does fall pretty standard with a few outliers. Above that, you could see the distribution of tax rates and levies with the percentage of each class and its corresponding valuation along with its tax levy. So, down below this, at the bottom of the page, we have a breakdown of fiscal 2023's values versus fiscal 22's values. As you may all know, the market saw a significant increase in prices in the residential class of 23.33% this year. That same information did not support an increase across CIP properties. On the next page, we have a 5-year growth comparison, this year's growth being $234,383. And below that, there is a more in-depth breakdown of real estate and personal property values by class. On the last page here, I think it's always good to have a breakdown of the average single-family home's tax bill and their value. So using that proposed tax rate of $1,462, we would see an average single-family tax bill of $6,873.80 for the year, and that's based on a valuation of $470,164. That is an increase of 25.5% from the prior year, based on market data. Final thing, I would like to say that the Board of Assessors recommends a motion to maintain a residential factor of 1 and a single tax rate for fiscal year 2023. Any questions?
Any questions from the board or comments? Yes. So this is it's a comment, and this is just a presentation data comment.
Sure.
So first, CJ, thanks for being in front of us here tonight. I think it's really important that when we go over stuff like this, that people at home can read them. This is a very readable presentation. It's a lot of good data. It does not translate very well to the screen behind us. And so my concern is the folks at home, you know, while we can read font 12 really easily here, that it's challenging at home.
Yeah.
And that perhaps in the future presentations to have this a little more readable just for the screens at home, especially as we talk about taxes. So I want to summarize. I think it was a lot of data that you provided. I just want to summarize a couple key things that stood out to me. So let me just get to that page. So the key thing is the tax rate, because everyone complains about taxes. So what's being proposed is that the current fiscal year has a tax rate of $17.19, and that the new tax rate's actually a significant drop
Correct.
To $14.62, which is the lowest in the last 5 years.
Correct. That's a direct reflection of the increase in values.
Yeah. And so what's noted here, and I think what's really important to mention is on this last page, or second last page, where you note the average single home value has increased $161,000 in the last 5 years.
That's correct.
While the taxes, and that's a 52% gain, while the taxes have gone up 19.12%. And that's on average. One question for you in your role as in the assessors. You know, the last 2 years we have with the 2.5% increase, it pretty much mirrors our almost pretty much mirrors our free cash estimates for the last 2 years. So we're raising money basically, and we're not using it, and so it's trickling over into free cash. So do you see an opportunity for that 2.5% to be decreased? In other words, for us not to add a 2.5% add-on to tax this year? Or I think
I don't think that's a question for the principal assessor. I think it's more a finance director question and a town manager question, but.
Then I'll pose that question to the finance director.
Okay.
But I think the question that I'm trying to get at, and perhaps Karen can come up and answer it, is the 2.5 is, you know, you're accounting for a 2.5% increase in the tax rate. And given our recent history of excesses, if that is standard practice, if you see the need for that, you know, how does that, is that number for you a movable number, or is that a static number in your profession?
I think that, again, boils down to more on the budget level for the town, which is something I don't want to speak to. It's not my expertise. I do think that there is, of course, some variation that you could take outside of that, or below that 2.5%, which the town has in the 10-year history. It looks like, it was before my tenure here, but it looks like the town on a few occasions has taxed below that maximum levy. This year it is slightly below that maximum levy. But what you typically see, what is standard practice across many municipalities, is if I had to say, I would say that taxing closer to that 2.5% is more common than not increasing that levy.
Yeah. No, we hear that from everyone. Everyone says the same thing. So I was just curious from your perspective, as you guys are crunching these numbers together,
Yep.
you know, how you see that 2.5% number. So.
Yeah, so from my perspective, my calculations are done solely on the assessed values of the town across all properties. So the numbers from there, at least from my point of view, as you mentioned, do kind of just plug in.
Okay.
So where we fall within the levy is something that I wouldn't want to speak to, because I wouldn't want to give out the wrong information.
My last question is with regards to, you know, we've been doing a single tax rate for a while. What kind of growth would we need to see in our commercial industrial properties to warrant kind of a change in how we're taxing them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So given that this year, if we were to apply a split tax rate at the maximum factor for commercial, industrial, and personal property, that the residential tax base would only see 3.9% in savings, while commercial properties would see 50% increase. I would say that Lunenburg is quite away from not putting commercial property and industrial property owners in a tight position by applying that tax rate. That's not to say it's outside of the realm of possibility. There are communities that do that split tax rate. It makes sense usually for more urban areas with, you know, more dense population and more businesses, more factories. But for a primarily residential town, I think that it sends both a bad message to our commercial tax base and also puts them in a tough position financially, considering that tax base is primarily small businesses, folks who, if they did see a 50% increase in their tax base, it may be detrimental, or it may be a reason for them to leave. So I think while it's not outside of the realm of possibility, it's not something I would recommend in the near future for Lunenburg.
Okay. All right, any
Yes.
other?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a question. I was just curious, when you finalize the average assessed values, what period of this year? Because I think seeing what's happened in the real estate market this year, we had a big spike. And now with the increase in interest rates, we're already starting to see prices stabilize and in some cases decrease.
Yeah, that's a good question. So from an assessment perspective, this year's values are actually based on January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. So this year's stagnation in the market likely won't be reflected for 2 years from now.
Okay.
The exception to that is if there aren't a lot of sales. Sometimes the prior year is taken into account, as it was in this case for commercial properties. But either way, those sales aren't reflected in values for a year.
Okay. Thank you.
As a follow-up to that question, then, we had this big property at former Wellham Parks sell this year, and I know I reached out to your office to ask about that earlier in the year, but I'll just ask the question publicly. So that property sold for something like $75 million or something along those lines, and our assumption of value was notably lower than that. When will the taxes mirror what the property sold for and what it was clearly valued at?
So that'll be reviewed this calendar year. As a 2022 sale, during the calendar year 2023 is when we would review it for 2024 values. So that's something that we want to address, because that is a unique property in terms of Lunenburg, and it's something that we could probably learn a lot from about our values. Yeah, so that'll be reviewed this year.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Was there any type of home or any area in town that saw a larger increase in residential values than others?
Not significantly this year. We did have a slight increase in land value around the water. That was justified by sales. That is something that will likely be addressed a little bit more in depth for next year's values. As a lot of you may know, it is the 5-year revaluation cycle for fiscal year 2024. So neighborhood values, styles of homes, things like that are dived a little more deeper into on those reval years, because it's essentially like a state level audit of our assessors' information.
And if I may just comment to people listening, because we get this every year. So the tax rate, as was noted, or the valuation of your house is not an indication of what you owe in taxes. It's the combination of both of them. So because you hear that the tax rate dropped by $3 per thousand does not mean you're not going to be, that you'll be getting a tax break. In fact, spoiler alert, your taxes are probably going up. So just so people are at home are not surprised by that. How did my taxes go up if the tax rate went down?
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. An unprecedented increase in prices makes an unprecedented decrease in tax rate, and that's what we're seeing this year.
Yeah, thank you. You made the point I was going to make before people start going bananas on social media, because it does happen every year.
Yeah.
They focus only on the one factor that went up. So, not that it's a combination. Oh, the valuations went up 23%, but they ignore the fact that the percentage or the rate went down. And then when the rates go up, the valuations went down or stayed even, they focus on the fact that the rate went up. So just it's two levers. Look at your tax bill. That's what matters. What matters is how much you're writing your check for.
Right.
So,
And one other point of information for people listening is that, only to follow up with the chair's question about 2.5, the town, even at its best, maybe there was a year, I think, or maybe 2 years in the past 20 where inflation was less than 2.5%. So even in the good years, we're just trying to stay even. And we've done a good job under the stewardship of the town managers, the current and past ones we've had, and the finance director in keeping up with that. So this is in no way anything but trying to keep the ship in the right direction with the right amount of energy and funding. So it is by no means a luxury that we do this, so.
All right, are there any other questions or comments from the board?
I just wanted to say thank you to CJ for the presentation. This was his first presentation on the tax rate. He's been here less than a year. I think he did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Personally, I think that information is hard to display through Zoom or any other method because there's a lot of numbers involved and a lot of information compacted into what you presented tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. I will take that feedback, though. I'll make that font a little larger, include a few more slides for next year.
Will this presentation be put up, available online? Because I think there are, though, that sector of people who are interested in seeing these firsthand, so,
Sure.
We can put it up on the website.
Yeah, we can do that.
thank you.
And I was going to mirror the town mayor's comments. This is really good information. I think the way that you laid this out this year for us was really clear, easy to understand, and for the homeowners at home to really get it. I know it's a lot of data. Not everyone works in the data world, but it was, as Heather noted, a great presentation, CJ, so thank you.
Thank you very
You
much.
could work a musical number into it next year.
Actually,
Really
that's
liven
Karen.
up the day.
Karen has one prepared for you guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, do we have to vote on it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I would move that the town accept the recommendation of the principal assessor and adopt a single rate,
Flat rate.
flat rate tax, well, not single, a single,
Is it single?
single rate
Okay.
tax levy.
Not split.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? All right, as many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. I didn't count your vote, Heather. What was that?
Why? I always say it so loud. Aye. You
All
always
right.
sing it?
And then, so that's, any no? No? All right, so it passes 5-0. Okay? Thank you again, CJ, for that. Thank you, Karen. I know you helped out, so thanks, Karen.
So for those of us that are old enough, I told CJ I was gonna sing the community auditions theme song, but he didn't know what that was.
Oh, my God.
I don't know what it is either.
You know, promise is promises.
Oh, I'm star of the day. I told CJ that was him tonight.
All right. Next on our agenda, we have our, we have a 7:30 appointment. So this is a request from Jason and Kathleen Martin and supported by Dan Proctor as their contractor and of 45 Parmenter Road to use town property located at 51 Parmenter Road in order to install a new septic system. Mr. Proctor, will you be presenting this to us this evening?
I will be, yes.
All right. We may have some questions for the homeowner as well.
Yep.
And I see that he is in attendance behind you. So please just state your name and feel free to
Yep.
go ahead and get started with
Dan
this.
Proctor, excavating contractor. I've been hired by Mr. Martin to install the septic system at 45 Palmer Road. Basically, he has a failed septic system. The failed system is actually on town property. It's a leach pit that is over the line. So we need to obviously remove that. We need to get access to the...
Where is it, if I may interrupt, where is
Yep.
the existing?
Yeah, so if you look on the right side of the plan, it says existing SAS location.
What
It's a
sheet
round
number?
circle. It's a leach pit.
What sheet number?
Got it.
We have two
I'm sorry,
sheets.
sheet number 1.
Got it.
Existing,
That right there, that little round circle?
okay. Oh, there it is, okay.
So they're gonna remove that.
Property line's the light solid line.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Oh.
So that would be step 1, obviously, is to, per Title V specs,
All
pump
right.
it dry.
If we can just pause before we go through this. So I look at these kinds of plans all the time. Can you just orient us to where the property line is?
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, so, like Todd just said, Mr. Dwyer, it's the light line, there's an iron rod, you can see on Palmer Road, right next to the telephone pole.
Is this marked as the,
IRS right there.
Yeah, that's
got
iron
it,
rod.
got it,
This is the property line, right?
got it.
And then there's an iron rod down by the lake.
Okay.
Those were confirmed and set by Dillis and Roy.
Yep.
Because obviously they knew the property line was close, so they did all the extensive survey work and they set those iron rods and confirmed them
Okay.
to determine where that property line is.
All right.
So the existing carport
Yep.
that shows right there is literally about a foot off the property line.
Okay.
The town property line.
Yep.
The two rectangular shaped PC1 and TT1 is treatment tank and pump chamber. So those are the two components that we need to get on the lake side of the carport. Okay, now, to get equipment around the front of the property, off the westerly side of it, I'd have to remove 2 or 3 trees. I'd also have to grade his front yard because right now it slopes, so truck access around the front.
Before we get into the plan, if you can just orient us to existing conditions first.
Okay.
So existing conditions, you mentioned that the existing septic system is on town property.
That's correct.
Where is that identified at? And
That's that round circle.
and that,
Yes.
yep. Because I'm noting this because the people at home are seeing the screen behind. I can read this.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So people at home are seeing this on the screen, and so it's to help orient them as well. So this is identified on this as existing SAS location.
Yep.
See repair notes. And this was fully installed on town property.
That's correct.
Okay.
Then there's an existing septic tank. It doesn't spell it out in one of the notes, but it's the light lines, rectangular shaped, underneath the dark shaded new tank that's going in. It actually sits on a 45-degree angle. That's the existing septic tank, which would also have to be pumped and removed.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
The town is serviced by an existing drill well, which is on the westerly side of the property. They shows that. And then you see these spokes, the 50-foot spoke and then the 100-foot spoke is, you know, what has to be shown on a plan to, you know, proximity to septic systems and what have you.
Okay. All right.
So that's existing.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So then, again, as far as construction, to get the septic tanks in, I mean, these tanks are, you know, 12,000 pounds. So we'd either need a crane and/or pieces, which is not allowed. Okay, you know, they have to be monolithic. So to get those tanks into the property there, the best access would be to go through the town property. There's no trees on the town property existing right now. It's just light vegetation. It's all sand and gravel, solid. There's an existing drain line that goes from the drain in the street and comes to daylight down by Shirley Lake. We have to remove 2 sections of fence on Mr. Martin's property. And what we would do is we'd bring our equipment around the town property to the front of his existing carport, dig all that material out, put it on trucks and truck it off-site.
Can you point out the fence? Has to be removed?
Yeah, he didn't actually spell out the fence, but the fence is the property line. It's a 6-foot-high, solid
White-
vinyl
yes.
fence.
This one over here, Dan, that one,
That's correct. Yeah.
right, that white, would be white. It looks
It's a
like it
white
would be
vinyl
white.
fence, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So-
So
so-
two sections of that fence would be removed. Those are on Mr. Martin's property.
So it's a white, just to confirm, this is a white vinyl fence that starts roughly around the backside of the existing carport.
That's
And
correct.
continues all the way down toward the lake.
That's correct.
The question that I want to ask about existing is what's delineated and marked as D is I believe a brown fence.
On the other side, over.
Yeah, that, so,
Give him your name. I'm sorry.
so, Jason Martin, I'm the homeowner. So to give history on that brown fence, when we purchased a property 5 years ago, that brown fence is already there. It must have been from the previous homeowner. That's why that fence is still there. Once we identified where the property lines were, that's when we built the white fence on the property line. Because obviously we identified where our actual property line stood.
Okay, at any point in time, were you noticed by the town that that fence was encroaching?
The brown fence?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we had, originally when we bought the home, we thought that was part of our property. We had a shed there. We also had another iron fence that connected to that. When we got notification that that was actually town property, we had all the fence that we had installed removed. The shed was removed the following spring because it was frozen. It was in the winter. That shed had been removed the following spring and put on the other side of the property, which is
Yeah.
my property.
I saw that there.
Yeah.
What's the story, though, with the brown fence not getting removed?
So I didn't remove the fence because I didn't buy that purchase of the property. I can remove the fence. It's not a problem. I can just cut it, stack it, and put it in the corner and have Shaw come get it.
Okay. All right. I think that answers my questions about existing, so I keep interrupting you. So, all right, so I think, So I think what we're saying is that we have a property line, that there's a vinyl fence directly on the property line. We have a brown fence that was, when the current owner purchased the property, they were notified that that brown fence, even though they didn't put it up, that the fence was encroaching, which is a problem that he inherited. The fence is still remaining, which we're going to want that to get resolved. All right. And so the request now, I think, are we all clear on existing conditions?
So I just have one point of clarification. On that brown fence, it looks like the brown fence as it, I'm trying to orient myself, as it extended towards the lake, it also looked like there was a piece that extended perpendicular from the fence that's shown in this picture towards the carport. That was removed?
Yeah, that's not there.
Okay.
That's correct. That's
That's
all
shown
gone.
on the plan, but it's been removed.
Right, so on that fence, it's, I
So
think-
it's
I
just
believe
that
it's-
remaining portion that's there?
It's
Okay,
just
thank
8
you.
sections of fence, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But to
The rear
clarify,
triangle,
that
the
it
rear back
goes,
part?
that 8 sections of fence, though, goes from the road roughly, mostly to the lake.
It's not near the road, it's probably 20 feet,
Yeah.
25 feet from the road, and it doesn't go to the lake, it abuts to a tree. That's maybe
Yeah, right here.
10 or
Yeah, you
15
can see
feet
it
from
in
the
the
lake,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can see it right here.
Yep.
Right there.
Yep. No, I've been here. We
Yeah,
talked.
we talked, yeah.
So I've been to your house, I've been there, I've seen the existing conditions.
Yeah, it's literally about 8 sections of fence just in a perpendicular line.
Oh, yep. Okay. Any other questions on existing conditions?
Just a comment, I think from a liability perspective, I'd rather have the DPW remove that fence, that it's on town property, the brown fence, than the
Did we
home.
notice the homeowner to remove it?
Yes, we did. At that time, and 2 years, almost, well, coming up on 2 years has passed.
What's changed in terms of our liability over the last 2 years?
Now, if we have him remove the fence, I'm just saying it would be easier at this point to have the DPW do it than cut it down.
If,
Yeah.
if I could add into that, just,
Yeah.
sorry, to add into that, one of the things my wife and I did when we moved in there also was to clean up that area. There's a lot of brick and block, and we actually got a pallet and stacked everything, so that if DPW comes in to clean it, they just pick up the pallet and they got the block. So that's, from the standpoint, if you're gonna have DPW do it, there's stuff that people have thrown in there that we've stacked neatly so that it can be taken.
Let's, if we can just overcome the obvious, the elephant in the room here. You're asking us to utilize town property to help you out as part of your sale of a house. But we know we've noticed you to remove something from town property that you haven't done. So why haven't you done it? Why didn't you remove the brown fence?
So this was a discussion that Heather and I had 2 years ago, was I can remove it. I didn't remove it because I felt that when I bought the property, I didn't buy the fence. But I'm happy to, I can remove it. It's just, it wasn't a need at the time to remove it. There was nothing going on with the property, number one, and I had uninstalled the fencing that I had put up, that I personally had done.
All the stuff that they, when they purchased the house, put up, they removed. They're saying it was, that fence was there before they even bought the property.
Yeah, but
Right.
then, I mean, they inherit that problem.
But that.
No,
that's-
not if
no,
it's on
that's
town
not
property.
town property.
Well, the question I have.
So
the
that's
question I
not
have is
their
when-
encroachment.
The area that was enclosed by the brown fence, was that property that you utilized?
We just mowed it. So yeah, it was utilized from the standpoint that it was just mowed. It wasn't, it's not necessarily.
You thought it
usable.
was your yard, so you mowed it?
Yes, exactly.
Up until the
So-
point
Where he
the
was
encroachment
notified.
letter was issued.
I'm sorry.
Up until the point the encroachment letter was issued.
Yes, yes.
So, Town Manager, through you, Mr. Chair. So the existing fence that remains, is that on the town's property line for
Complete.
the other property that abuts us?
No.
No,
It's not, okay,
It's literally sitting right in the middle of the town property.
okay,
Everything from here up is our property.
okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You got it?
Back at it.
All right,
Can I have a clarification?
yes.
The septic tank that's on town property, Dan, are you going to remove that?
That's correct. So basically, you pump it dry and then we remove it.
Okay.
Yeah, and fill it with clean sand.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
First step, we have a conservation meeting next Wednesday to get, the okay from the conservation. This plan was approved last at the Board of Health, so we have a permit for this job from the Board of Health. So we get the notice of intent done through the conservation so I can install my erosion control, and then we would start the process of removing that existing leach pit, removing the existing tank. Again, we'd bring equipment around that side of the carport on the town property, remove the material to get the new tanks in, bring the tank truck in, set the tanks, do the plumbing, backfill everything. And then everything at that point really can be done on town property, because we can get small equipment underneath that carport, like we can get mini excavators and stuff, wheelbarrows, what have you. So we can get small equipment in there to do whatever we need to do to clean up around the septic tanks and the plumbing line and the electric lines and all that type of stuff. So the whole town property, 2 to 3 days tops to get those tanks in the ground, plumbed in, and away you go type of thing. And then we'd bring it back to, the state that it's in right now, which is just leaves, but we'd have to, put down loam and seed it, hay mulch, that type of thing to keep the conservation happy, so. So that would all be taken care of. And then everything else at that point is on, Mr. Martin's property, so.
I have a question, Mr.
Of course.
So the drain, what is the size of the drain pipe that's underneath there?
Yeah, so Jack from Dillis and Roy did not call out. I'm quite certain it's a 12-inch diameter. I think it's the old aluminum pipe that the
And
town...
is there any, driving heavy equipment over it, is there any potential that it's going to be damaged?
No, it's very deep, actually. It's a good 4 feet deep, so, yeah, it would be safe from that. Yep.
Okay.
And just through you, Mr. Chair, to the town manager, so just to be clear, you don't want the homeowner to remove the brown fence?
I would recommend that the town do it, DPW do it. It's completely on town property.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Just liability-wise, if this goes through as far as any access to the property, the town's going to need to enter a right of entry, which has all the stipulations of allowing access to the property. A similar situation, I think, should be if, a fence were removed even, because what are they removing it with? What type of, what condition are they leaving it, the property in? What if they get hurt when removing it?
Right, but the only reason I ask this is that with other encroachments, we ask people to remove what they put there. Clearly, it would seem by that logic that that would be at the same position. Why would we want people to remove a shed they put on there if it's not their property? Because if they get hurt taking down a shed that's not on their property.
Yeah. This wasn't their property, they're saying, they didn't install the fence to these property owners.
Right, but they thought it was their property until we told them it wasn't their property. I think that was clear with the answer of the homeowner.
The boundary, I think they thought the boundary was their
Right.
property.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right.
Is the fence going to be in the way? Do you need the fence removed in order to do the work?
No, I don't need it, no.
All right, so as a separate issue, I think I'll talk to I think you can hear my concern about this, and that's, separate conversation with the town manager. All right, any other information you want to provide to us?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
All right, any other questions from the board?
Not to fall on the sword here, but we found out last minute that our closing was going to be held up because we didn't have town approval. This came from the underwriter. We found out 30 minutes after our moving trucks pulled out with our stuff. So we're sitting on $4,200 a week in storage fees for our material. So whatever, I have to do, if it's remove a fence, whatever it may be, as soon as I can, so I can get that done and get this. This impacts 3 families, obviously. It's a 2-home sale, so, all right, but, thank you.
All right. I want to open up to the public for any comments from the public or questions from the members of the public. Ms. Lockwood?
Hi, Anna Lockwood, 91 Main Street. I'm also the chair of the Parks Commission, and I'm part of the Open Space Commission. And this property, town property, is actually on our agenda for open space tomorrow. We've been investigating different properties around Shirley Lake to have town access. So, I actually visited this property a couple weeks ago because we are entertaining the idea of maybe using this property for car top access, just, small. So I just want to keep that in mind that whatever it's done to the property, that this is not just a property that the town maybe has not used, but it might be one that we're going to be using in the future. So, make sure that whatever work they do leaves it, in a way that it doesn't, them hurt the property further than it is. There is severe encroachment there from his side, and the other side too. When I visit the property, there's clearly a dog that lives there. Sometimes there was a dog water bowl, there was a chain there. So I don't think, from what I hear, it's from his side, but it's definitely something that I just want you all to know that it is on the agenda for two commissions. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Anna. All right, any other questions or comments from the board? All right.
I will make a comment. I will make a comment that, given the presentation and the situation, that, even with the encroachment issue and the remaining fence, the house deserves to be able to put a septic system in it to make it a viable dwelling. So I don't, and it's the request for using town property to do that seems to be from the lot, the only real feasible way to do it. So, to me, the plan has met that. As far as the timing, if we vote on it tonight or not, that really is on the homeowner when that came to us. But, from the project itself, it makes sense that we do it. And we've done it in other times and other places in town.
I'd just like to add on to what Tom said. I think from an access standpoint, it makes complete sense. It is really at no cost to the town to give them permission to do it, and it prevents them from having to take down trees adjacent to the lake, have a much more arduous task of trying to go around the back of the house from the other side of the property. They'd have to do much more extensive erosion control, or they'd have to bring in a crane to pull these tanks over, and then that would be a danger to the existing carport and the house, however small. And I just think that this makes complete sense, and I support it.
Okay. Any additional comments? I have one. Mr. Proctor and Mr. Martin, I think your request tonight's really clear. I think this is a hard one to say no to, but I think it's, I would also be remiss to not, on behalf of the town, comment about the encroachment. That typically, when the town provides notice about an encroachment issue, it's something that should be pretty immediately addressed. You're on your way out of the town. I know it doesn't. I know how far my comment is going tonight. But it's one of those things that it is important to us for any kind of encroachment issue to get addressed. This isn't a large parcel of land. It's the town's only access to, as Anna mentioned, it's the town's only access to Lake Shirley. And as you can see by the current condition, we don't utilize it. We haven't making any effort to make it public, although the Parks Commission is, as you heard, going to talk about that to explore what could happen there. But the property is still, with the select board, so we'd have to, there's a lot more steps involved before that can happen. But when there's an encroachment issue, it should be addressed, with all deliberate haste, because I think it's the other way around. When you're in a situation where you need us to act quickly, that you don't want us to wait 2 years, right? So it's kind of like that two-way street, that we're here to be helpful, but at the same time, we don't send a lot of encroachment letters out, and when we do, they need to be addressed. So it's good that it sounds like the town manager prefers for DPW assets to be utilized to remove that wooden fence, which works to your benefit. I went to the site, I don't have any concerns, but obviously there's multiple encroachment problems here that weren't caught in time when that septic system was installed. I'm not sure how that got through the Board of Health without proper lines, but at this point, it is what it is. So hopefully, I know that you've had a really successful time here in Lunenburg. Hopefully this was a great community for you to invest in and go to Lancaster and do great things. And with that, I am going to entertain a motion to approve the request before us tonight, if there is such a motion.
Can I add one?
Yes.
As a compromise to the fence, because it seems like the board would prefer the homeowner address this through the encroachment, and then it looks like the board is going to vote in favor of allowing use of town property, is to roll that into the right of entry agreement that we'd have to enter in with the property owner, as far as the condition of removal of the fence and condition that the property is left in access.
Well, I want to be clear tonight on what that condition is, because I'm also going to ask for a motion that says that we provide an ROEA within a week, because I think we need to turn this around pretty quickly.
That town council would have to draft it, so
Okay, so what
I don't
can,
have, a standard rate tonight for you to.
yeah, I understand that. Maybe it's not clear to me what your comment is.
Well, I'm just, we didn't vote on whether the DPW should remove
I
the
know.
fence.
No.
Right, so, I don't, do you want to vote on that? Because I don't have a problem with DPW.
I don't think that's, is that
removing-
votable?
Right, like, well.
I mean, the
she
town
wants-
manager has control of
Yeah,
the
so,
DPW. Are we going
like-
to tell them to
So
come
I'm,
manager?
yeah, so I don't understand why would we include that in the agreement? If you want to remove it with the DPW, then you remove it with the DPW. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe I'm not clear on what your request is, Heather.
She wants to know if she should include it in the agreement that we're going to make with the property owner to use the right-of-way. Do we want to include that, the fence removal, in that agreement? Or do we
Okay.
want to have the DPW remove the fence?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
But in your proposal, who would remove the fence then?
The property owner,
Okay.
but as long as it's
I know.
in.
Don't worry there.
As long as it's in a right of entry agreement that protects the town.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, then I'm fine with that.
That's my only concern
I'm fine.
with the property owner doing that.
Because I want one other thing, and the other thing protected. I mean, the drainage pipe is important, and Mr. Proctor has indicated that it's deep and it's probably not going to be affected, but I want it included that any damage to the drainage pipe has to be paid for to repair. So that's part of the agreement, too.
I think we're going to need to put a date on when we're going to provide some access. So in this, so what is, we heard the applicant, I mean, I understand the position that they're in, but we don't usually consider that hardship. I mean, it's,
Well, all we can do is vote
Yeah.
on doing it, and then it's got to go to town council for the agreement.
yeah, but when are we going to provide access as of? That's what I'm saying.
Why don't we just say as soon as practicable?
Right.
Soon as practicable.
I mean, so, I mean, whenever town council can get the agreement that the homeowner signs as of that date.
Conservation is meeting on the 16th, so obviously, nothing can be done until conservation
Correct.
votes on this anyways.
Yep.
And then the order has to be recorded and what have you, so it'll be,
Yeah.
a week or so, but we're around Thanksgiving, sorry. And I explained to Jason earlier, the tank that we're putting in is a treatment tank, okay, they're 3 weeks out, so that's why tomorrow morning I want to order that tank, knowing that this is all gonna happen, it's just gonna happen throughout whatever time it takes for legal counsel to draw it up and all that type of stuff.
All right.
So I can order the tank, because it's, it's an $8,000 tank, so I gotta get that ordered so I can get it to the site and be ready to put it in the ground, that type of thing. But realistically, I'm about 3 weeks out anyhow for my supply chain and my jobs and all that type of stuff, which should fit with everything that you're talking about.
All right, so December 1st, roughly.
Give or take,
In
yeah.
that
And like I
time
said,
Okay. And Town Manager, are you confident we can have an ROEA within the next 3 to 4 weeks?
By the first meeting in December for the board? So the December 6th.
December 6th meeting?
Yeah, more than, yeah, I think
That's
that will
like a
give town
month.
council more than enough time.
What she's noting is that we have to sign this.
yes, no, I understand, yeah. No, she explained
that
that to
would-
me earlier.
yeah, so that would be
Next week we
December.
have-
That's why we were pushing to get on this
Next week,
meeting.
we have special town meeting.
Yep.
The week after that, it's not going to be ready anyway, but
Yep.
and then
No, I know, Heather explained
in
that to me when
December.
we talked earlier, a week ago. That's why we were pushing to get it on this meeting, so, yep.
Yep, nope, and I think you understand, we try to,
Yep.
move quickly on this one.
Yeah, and I think the client just needs like some information that he can give to his buyer and the underwriter and all that, you know what I'm saying? So, It's not that the system needs to be in tomorrow, it just, he needs all that clarification
Yep.
for his underwriter.
All
Yeah.
right, so what we're going to be approving tonight or what we're going to be voting on tonight is access for the property, using town property. The access should occur in the month of December, I'm guessing, and that is not going to extend it into December, not going to extend into January of the new year.
That's
right?
correct.
So then we're looking to provide access to the property for the purpose of removing the septic system. So it's pretty straightforward. And then the town manager, it sounds like the board, a majority of the board's in agreement that the fence is a separate issue and that DPW will be taking responsibility for that.
And to remove the existing septic on town property is part of that as well.
Correct.
That whole project.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm for the town manager's proposal that it be part of the agreement, that the homeowner remove the fencing, because it'll be, that's what her request was. I'm for that, as long as the agreement provides indemnification against the town for liability in the removal.
All right. Let's,
So that addresses partly your issue, and it was part of my issue too. I mean, I would have approved it anyway, but if we can, I think that should be part of it. That should be part of the agreement, that the homeowner removes the remaining pieces of the fence, and the liability that the town manager mentioned goes away if it's part of the agreement.
all right. Rather than a motion, does the rest of the board agree with Mr. Alonso on this?
I see no problem with the DPW taking it out.
Okay.
I have no problem with whichever way Heather wants to craft it. Whatever she thinks is better for the town's interest,
Yeah.
that's what I support.
Yep.
All right.
Yes, I agree.
I give it to Heather.
What's in the best interest of the town, Heather? You just-
My only concern, like I said, is the liability to the town as far as the removal. So as long as it's wrapped up in this, I think the town is protected,
And so your request then is to
is to include it.
include the removal of the fence
by
as
the-
part of the project?
Yes. Yep.
And the fencing material? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's straightforward. And he said he's gonna have a chainsaw out there tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Not
we gotta have
until
the
the agreement's in place. This is not the time to get over hasty about this.
All right, this is gonna be, all right, who's prepared to make the motion?
make
Thank you, Tom.
I move that we approve the request to access town property for the removal of a prior and installation of a new septic system as presented, with the additional caveats that the removal of the fence by the homeowner be included in this agreement, and that the protection of the drainage pipe against any damage during construction be the liability of the homeowner as well.
Second.
All right, any additional discussion? All right, sounds like that motion will satisfy the request of the applicant. As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. So we will meet with you, or rather, we will meet on the first of meeting in December, so I think that's the 6th, and that's when we'll be presented with the ROEA. We'll review it, we'll get it in advance, but we'll sign it at that meeting, and then access could be granted, immediately thereafter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very intimidating seat,
All right. This is a very
what he said.
intimidating seat
Oh.
in front of us. All right. Okay. Next, we have interviews, appointments, reappointments, resignations, ratification of town manager's appointment of conservation administrator. Sagan?
Went over that in case there is any communication from other boards.
I thought I said that.
No,
No?
but okay.
All right, I'll pause before we do that, Heather. Were there any communications from other boards?
I had a note to mention this, was the Water District. I had sent an email from, that the Water District Commissioner Chair asked for a representative to be included in their discussions regarding the Hickory Hills well. And Mr. Alonso and Mr. Dwyer both stepped forward for possible representatives to that. I spoke with Mr. Birch today. They have a representative from Hickory Hills landowners as well as Woodlands Board of Trustees to sit on these meetings, and they'll be discussing this at their meeting next week as if that's going to be part of their regular meetings or separate group meetings, so it doesn't take up their whole meeting agenda for their regular meetings.
And Mr. Chair, insofar as Mr. Dwyer is not part of the water district, and they were looking for a quote, neutral, unquote, person, I am in the water district, I was at the meeting, I have no problem in bowing out and just having Mr. Dwyer be our representative.
All right. Yeah, well, I had a question for the town manager about the word neutral, because I'm like, typically, you know, I know that typically the chair represents the board, but I am in the water district as well.
Yeah.
And so I figured that would be a conflict.
But you weren't there, I mean, I
wasn't
voted in the article, and I don't know that, I mean, I certainly was neutral enough to have done the final count, so I don't know that my presence would be objectionable, but just to remove any possibility, since Mr. Dwyer was not in and wasn't at the meeting, it just makes sense.
What time are their meetings at that they would look to have us at? 'Cause I think-
That's what I just referred to. They're not sure when they'll be. They're going to discuss that at their next meeting next week.
Okay.
Their meetings usually happen at 4 PM.
Right.
They are
They're not sure if
typical
it's going to be
water
part of the
commissioners.
regular meeting or a separate
Okay.
meeting.
If it is part of the 4 o'clock meeting, are you available, Todd?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are we comfortable with Todd representing the board on this?
I am.
Okay,
Okay. I'll relay that to Mr. Bursch.
thank you. All right, any other communications from other boards?
I have none.
All right. So to the town manager, interviews, appointments, reappointments, and resignations.
Tonight, I'm asking for the board to ratify my appointment of Conservation Administrator Anna Petrie. We received 34 applications for the position. There were 3 with relevant experience and 1 accepted an interview. The person I'm appointing is Anna Petrie. She has her Bachelor's of Science in Wildlife and Fisheries Management, was a wildlife intern for the U.S. Forest Service, was a TERN intern, I can say that fast, for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for Monomoy National Wildlife Refuge, an inventory arborist for the Davie Resource Group, worked at Weston Nurseries as their tree and shrub sales specialist, and is currently working part-time for the town of Sterling as their conservation administrator there. And she's also worked with Matt Marrow over the years. And she considers him a mentor and a resource with any questions that she may have. Her references just described her as intelligent, organized, and having a great personality. So I am asking the board to ratify this appointment tonight, and she would be able to start November 28th. And the conservation chair was notified as well of this,
Okay,
and was happy to hear that we found someone.
excellent. Any questions to the town manager on this?
This is, we've gotten the word about our previous conservation person. Didn't we get a letter from the Mass Conservation Commission that Elaine sent around?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Her name's already in the letter.
yeah.
All right. Okay, is there a motion to ratify?
Yes, I move to ratify the town manager's appointment of Anna Petrie. Ratify the town manager's appointment of Anna Petrie to the position of Conservation Administrator.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any additional discussion on this? All right, as many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. Motion passes 4-1. And to the town manager report.
Great. Announcement of existing vacancies. The following is a list of current vacancies. Council on Aging, there's 1 vacancy. Finance Committee, 2 vacancies. Green Communities Committee, 2 associate vacancies. Historical Commission, 2 vacancies. Open Space Committee, 1 member-at-large vacancy. The Planning Board, 1 vacancy appointed by the Planning Board and the Select Board until the next annual town election. And Zoning Board of Appeals, there's 1 associate vacancy. Anyone interested can find the application forms on the town website, complete them, and return them to the Select Board's office. Current employment opportunities, we have a position for administrative assistant for IT, heavy equipment operator, library assistant, library page, police officer, production technician, public safety front desk clerk, recreation director, and videographers for public access. And all these positions are posted on the town website and how to apply. An update on the requests from the Eagle House supporters regarding their clothing drive. We had received a request from the Eagle House supporters to place a donation pod on the Ritter lawn. And I worked out with the president of the supporters, Pat Kennedy, to use a room at the TC Passios. And they're going to be there from December to April, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 to noon. So someone will be at the entry at TC Passios, to the entrance, to accept the donations during those time periods. And this is a much better solution for everyone, just given the fact not only having a bin on the lawn out there, especially during winter, and trying to do operations and drive during winter, and people, could be treacherous conditions for people volunteering, doing the clothing drive for them. So I think it turned out to be all around better solution. Email migration for town committee, board, and commission members and library accounts. The migration of all the town committee, board, and commission members' emails from Edition Networks to Microsoft Office 365 is now complete. Our IT company has fielded any follow-up questions, and emails from the lunenburgonline.com account will be forwarded indefinitely. The spam filter on the Microsoft Office 365 is much stronger than Edition Network, so you may notice that some emails that you used to regularly receive, they'll be in your spam junk folder. You'll just want to, you can click on report not as junk, and it will then go into your regular inbox from that point forward. So also the library accounts, they were also created Microsoft Office 365 accounts for those library emails. It's a little different scenario with the migration for them because of CW Mars and their rules for access to the emails within their server. So the IT director is working out a solution on making sure the library employees and the staff there have access to all their old emails at the same time, and how to get those transferred over. But anyone that does, I just want to publicly announce that if anyone does have issues with that process, I have been contacted by different board and committee members. There's been a handful of people that had issues, but they're to contact the help desk at Suzer IT. So if you do have any questions, please call our office. An update on the Economic Development Bill earmark. We've received notification on Friday that the Economic Development Bill passed, and therefore we received the $100,000 earmark towards the abatement of the old primary school project. I've sent the Executive Office of Administration and Finance all of the relevant information that they needed to issue the contract documents.
Excellent.
Receive those funding.
Excellent.
In meetings, events, and other announcements, the remaining fall yard waste days at the old landfill off of Youngs Road will be November 12th and 19th from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. And the next Zoning Board of Appeals hearing on Pondview Commons will be November 9th, tomorrow night.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you to the town manager, as always, for a wonderful and thorough report. As I've told you before, some people say it's the best part of the meeting. All right, so thank you to the town manager for that. Going into old business.
Wait, actually, Mr. Chair, can I
Yes.
just ask one question? There's plenty of time before December begins to straighten this out, but I have different information, unless you got more updated information during the day, but this morning at the Council on Aging meeting, the indicated times that room was going to be open. Incidentally, thank you for working that deal out. I think not having a pod on town property just eliminates so many potential issues that it's great. So, but the information we got this morning, and that it also appears on their flyer, is that the room would be open to receive donations on Tuesdays and Saturdays, December through March, and then, sorry, hold on a minute. I'm sorry, just Saturdays, December through March, 9 to 11, and then Tuesdays and Saturdays in April. Tentative times, 9 to 11. So I don't know what the deal is, like what the most up-to-date information is. The information you have or the information I have?
Definitely the information I have is what I confirmed with the Eagle House supporters, and that's what was approved, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 to noon. And that was worked out with the school facilities director, so they're the primary occupant of that building, and with the security there, that during the week, during weekday hours was the best time for receival. And Ms. Kennedy agreed to that as well. in those times.
Okay.
So if there's different information out there, I think I'll contact the relevant parties to make sure that it gets corrected.
Thanks.
Are you charging them anything? I know this is a donation, or?
No, because they're doing everything for donations. There's no charge for this use for a nonprofit.
All right. Any other questions for the town manager on the town manager report? All right, old business. I want to take number 2 first. Update on the fiscal year 22 and 23 capital plans, capital projects. That's more of an update, and I expect numbers 1 and 3 will be more of a discussion.
I can share these. All right. So, starting with the fiscal 22 capital plan, it's in the board's Google Drive and projected on the screen. The turnout gear, that project is complete for the fire department. The bulletproof vest, there's one more vest needed for an officer. We have a remaining balance of $2,594. The additional vest is approximately $1,000. The highway 6-wheel dump, plow and sander, replacing the 2005 International that was ordered in September, and the estimated delivery is the fall of '23. The public safety building chiller, the chiller is installed. There's remaining aspects of the project that need to be completed, but should be completed in the next few weeks. The Flat Hill Culvert construction projects, that will be put out to bid in January 23 with the construction of fall of 2023. And that's something I've reported on in previous town manager reports. The police vehicle marked for placement, that vehicle is on the road. There's a couple of remaining invoices to be processed. There's a remaining balance of $3,598, which those invoices would be paid from. The Turkey Hill Elementary School exterior envelope repairs, that project is complete. The Ritter ADA ramp construction, the specs are complete, and we're waiting on a decision on the Ritter windows because that project is tied to the overall building envelope project. The town hall repairs, the specs are complete, and the assistant town manager is working on the bid package. The Page Street survey design permit, that project is complete. The final design plans, are 90% complete, or at this point they may be 100%. That was my last update from the DPW director, but they could be done within the last week. The Ritter envelope repair projects, as I mentioned, we're waiting on the decision of the Ritter windows. The police vehicle, the marked replacement, that vehicle is on the road and also still processing invoices for that vehicle. The public safety building, carpet estimates have been received, and the assistant town manager will be advertising per procurement regulations, laws. And the Marshall Park master plan, the conceptual design is complete, and we have 2 remaining small invoices that have not yet been processed to be paid out of the balance of $13,377. And the 3/4 ton pickup with plow was ordered in September. This September estimated delivery date of January of 2023, and that came over the appropriation by $1,561.50. Any questions on fiscal '22?
Yes. So I just want to confirm, so this money is available as of July the 1st of 2021. Is that right?
Yes.
So July the 1st of 2021. What's going on with the public safety building carpets, $55,000?
We have estimates.
I guess my question is why has there been a long delay? We're relatively kind of low.
This, probably because it was a lower no, I'm sorry, take that back. Because at the point during the last year, there were a lot of condensation. I did report this to the board, a lot of condensation issues in the training room, that they were trying to find out the solution and didn't want to replace the carpet when there's condensation issues,
Okay.
which seem to be resolved. They haven't had those issues, partly I think because of the chiller, and partly because of the roof repairs that were identified as well.
Okay. Are there projects from prior to fiscal year '22 that are still open?
There are some, Karen Brochu and I go through those every year and with the department heads on the status of those, but they pretty much are all closed out. And there's, I think, at least 3 that identified will be available for June appropriation to be closed.
All right, I think as an action item, I'll just note that I would like to see the history of what open projects prior to fiscal year '22 we have available. I mean, is it common that, and this is just a global question, I know that we've had a higher amount of projects, or rather, a higher amount of funds for projects in the last 2 years, but as we look at fiscal year '22, roughly half the money has not been expended. When we get into '23, it's like 2/3 of the money hasn't been expended. Is there a capacity?
I think there's an explanation for every one of those projects, like the Flat Hill Road culvert. We had estimates that were almost double the cost of what we had for an appropriation, so we had to apply for a grant, which we received, and that took a year. And now we're in the process of going out to bid for that. That's a large one, that's almost 500,000. The Ritter project, that's $247,000 of that total. So right there, I think that's a majority of what you're seeing for remaining balance.
Okay, I'll ask my question about capacity when we go through '23.
Capacity for doing projects? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I think that what I'm wondering is, everyone has a limit on what is actually feasible. I know that there's, I can say I'm going to do everything, but I can only do so much. What I'm wondering is, I know that we have these high years of more available funds to do projects that are really needed projects, but are we running into a capacity issue with staff in terms of ability to get these projects out the door and supervised because of the volume of them?
So with the backlog of projects that need to be done to our facilities, I'd say that's our main issue that we're addressing. There's a lot of needs for our facilities. Having just created a facilities director position to address those versus one department that was, infrastructure, equipment, vehicles, sewer,
I know all the
facilities,
reasons why it needed to separate.
was a capacity issue, and therefore that's why that it was vital that the position be separated out from DPW. But I think having a facilities director position is instrumental to getting these types of projects done. if we did not have that position. And we have 23 projects in fiscal '23. That is a significant amount to get accomplished. But I think we have, there's multiple steps, and some things take more time, and so it may cross over years as far as what planning needs to go. Permitting, obviously, for certain projects is an issue, so it's may not always occur within that fiscal year.
All right.
At least the town has appropriated the funding and is trying to address the issues.
And I just want to comment that I think 99% of the questions I ask you in meetings, I've asked you prior to the meeting, and this being one of them. So I think some, just to note, some of the questions that I ask are really for the benefit of people at home. I already know the answers to them, but I think it's just helpful for, others to get an explanation for some of these things. So, thank you.
Did that make sense?
I thought it did. All right, fiscal year '23.
Let me shrink this a little bit. So, Page Street culvert construction, there's a total project cost of $150,000. The design was in fiscal '22 capital plan. This is anticipated to be put out to bid in the spring of '23, with construction to start summer of '23. The 10-wheel plow and sand truck that was ordered in September of '22, estimated delivery fall of '23. That was over budget from the appropriation by $2,564.40. The public safety building engineering design for drainage. This is a project that when the facilities director came in, he, from his observations of what was going on at the building, does not see that there's any evidence that the engineering work for this would need to be done. So this would be available, this $25,000 would be available for appropriation at the annual town meeting.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Through you, Town Manager. It seems like this is somewhat related to the comment that the chair had regarding the carpeting and the moisture problem. It seems this year we haven't had a condensation problem in there, and the chiller may have contributed to fixing that problem, but it also may be a consideration that we had a very dry year this year, and we might just be seeing a side effect of a dry year because we're not having water near the ground surface to cause a condensation problem. So I personally think it may be worth going forward with a study to evaluate the drainage there because there are some low-lying wetlands in that area, and I'd hate to see us forgo this and then, we have a wet year in the next year or two and go, oh, we do have a problem. Man, it'd be nice if we could get that taken care of. So I just want to make that remark. Thank you.
This was a project that the previous DPW director, because at that point, facilities was under Rob Oliva, our previous DPW director, was one that he recommended. I'm trying to track down information with any correspondence with engineering company that may have led to that conclusion beyond what was discussed at capital planning.
Right, I was going to say that at capital planning, the facilities director, who has, a good amount of experience, said that he didn't see any evidence in any regard, in any other part of the envelope of the building that would indicate what was originally thought to be the problem, which was like the rising water underneath. But, there's nothing outside, nothing else inside. It really was located in one area that he thought was part of the HVAC system not being well balanced. So I'm relaying, that is not my area of expertise. This is what he said at the meeting last night.
Senior Center HVAC upgrades for $25,000. The facilities director is seeking an assessment first and of the whole system as a whole, the HVAC system as a whole, and if the funding is sufficient for that project. The master plan, the land use director is working with the assistant town manager on putting this project out to bid, and that is in draft format right now. The two-way radio system was ordered, and the estimated delivery is April of '23. The canine replacement, the first step of the process was posting the canine handler position, which is commencing shortly. This is when Jerry retires, the new dog. The police marked Ford Interceptor Hybrid, it was ordered in September of '22, and that takes 16 to 20 weeks to be delivered and then needs to be upfitted. The town hall repairs, the specifications are complete, and the facilities director is working with the assistant town manager on that bid package. The Flat Hill Road drainage study, McCarty Engineering submitted their report of drainage study findings, and I forwarded those on to the board as well. And that project took significantly, right at this point, significantly less. So if there's additional steps needed as part of that overall project, there's capability there. The 1-ton dump truck with plow, that was ordered, and the estimated delivery is January of '23. Records retention, seeking estimates for the phase 1 for destruction of documents. The utility tractor was ordered in September of '22, this September. Estimated delivery is June of '23. The Marshall Park Survey, that project was awarded to Dillis and Roy with an estimated completion by January of '23, and there's a remaining balance after award of $7,300. The senior center vertex items 4 and 7 for the roof, that work is scheduled for this week. It looks like it's going to be no more than $10,000 to do that piece of the roof. The 1-ton dump truck with plow, that was ordered in August of, this past August, estimated delivery of March of '23. That appropriation, there was a shortage of $2,919 based on the capital plan funding. The mower for the schools will be ordered in the next couple of weeks, according to the school facilities director. The Brooks House, the foundation repairs, the facility director is seeking estimates from contractors for that work. The police marked 150 responder, that was ordered in September, 16 to 20 weeks to be delivered, and then needs to be upfitted. The old primary Vertex hazardous materials abatement project, that will be put out to bid in January '23 as part of the larger demolition project.
Can I stop there just on a question? I thought our timeline on that was sooner than that.
No, that's the timeline I've been reporting.
Okay.
The senior center, installing the generator. The facilities director is, this is something I spoke with him the other day about seeking an engineer to put together the project specifications on that. The outdoor ADA patio, this is in the design phase with McCarty Engineering, and we're waiting on updated engineering construction estimates. And the AC for the classrooms at the primary, that project is on hold due to recent revised estimates that are far exceed that appropriation. So the school is reassessing this project after getting these new estimates. Any questions?
Any questions?
No, that's a lot going on.
It is a lot going on. It's a lot that should be going on, but I think, I think it's a lot. I mean, I think that's a lot happening. I think it's, I think, first of all, to the town manager, I appreciate the explanations. I think they're really helpful to understand why things are where they're at. But I think there's still a level of unease having, roughly 40 open capital projects, many of which still need to happen. And then, we're actively in another capital planning process now. So I'm concerned.
I guess what would be the solution to that?
Yeah,
I mean, we still have all these needs, and I don't think it's, I mean, we've had years of open capital projects before. We've actually, in the last few years, closed out a lot of capital projects from previous years that had been open for multiple years. That's been kind of a goal to do that.
Yeah, what I see as solutions to this is several of, it seems as, I asked the question earlier about capacity. Some things aren't very clear to me on, I would expect certain things to be a little further along, to be quite frank, in the process. And I am a little concerned that we have, I didn't do the exact count, but I am a little concerned that we have, these are all, I'm not going to take away from the need of all these projects. All these things need to happen, and I do support them. I did vote for them. I'm in agreement with the reason for them all happening. I think that we need to turn these things around a little quicker. And I understand that we may be maximizing the capacity of available staff, but then I think we need to stop adding to the plate. It's not, to me, a good thing to have this many projects, capital projects, that are out there and open, and to expect really a handful of staff to be able to oversee all this stuff effectively while also doing their day-to-day jobs. I'm a little concerned that we're piling this stuff up, and I would like to, I think so you're asking kind of what I think. I think the direction going forward, I think we need to kind of have perhaps a better mindset of when we're going through, when we approve the capital plan every May. I think I've had the expectation that products will be done before the next capital plan gets approved. And maybe that's an incorrect expectation of my part. So perhaps there needs to be some clarity when things get approved on when we expect them to be completed. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I do have a question for the town manager. The funds from this capital plan that you're not going to use, that you mentioned earlier, the $25,000, they're going to be reappropriated at the special town meeting or a town meeting?
No, town meeting.
And will they go into another capital plan, or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep, we historically have done that.
okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
It's not out of necessity, it's out of, that's what our custom is.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
No, it's a really good thing that we're doing all these things, but I know we're in a high inflationary environment, and so numbers only last for so long. So we can't get these things done within a couple of years. I think that's where I think I'm a little concerned, is if we're not able to get projects completed, because the pricing has changed of them, which we don't know yet, then I think I will raise more concerns and more alarms. So I'm trusting that these prices will hold, that what's been approved will actually happen, and that staff are capable of managing this level of projects. But I personally think it's a lot. So what can we do? If everyone's moving as quick as we can move, then maybe it's on our side. All right. That's it for anything else for capital plans?
No.
Any other questions or comments to the town manager?
I just wanted to make a comment, to be, of these 40 things, if you're, I know that was a ballpark, but to be fair, some of these things are in process and completely beyond the control of, you order the vehicle's been ordered in September of '22. It's not going to be delivered until the fall of '23. That's counted as an open item. And there's several like that. The dump truck. the police marked Ford Interceptor. I mean, so there's more than a handful of things like that in this 40. So just action's been taken, and now it's waiting on other people. So,
Mr. Chair, I would add that, in my experience on this board, that the number of open projects, ebbs and flows with time. And the ones that are not racing to get done, again, the ones in FY23, for instance, is the longer list. First of all, it was a very aggressive list. I don't think we've ever spent $2.1 million in the capital plan. If it was not for this many items, maybe a larger single item or,
Yeah.
But a lot of these need to be, appropriated before we can go out to design and get engineering to do the project. So that takes time in and of itself. Number two is a lot of them are facilities related, and now with the facilities director, who in my two encounters with him seems to be very thorough and wants to do things methodically, and to paraphrase something he said last night, when questioned about some of the open projects, he says, I'm not just going to spend it because it was appropriated. He's actually investigating the need, like the public safety building and the condensation problem being one of them. He wants to assess, is this going to address what we think it's going to address, or is it not even a Band-Aid? Like if it's just putting money out there that's not going to be appropriate. So 10 weeks into the job, he's going to take some time, and personally, I appreciate that we're looking at him investigating it to make sure that the money we appropriated is even addressing the problem we think it is. And I think that the large amount of these projects are facilities related, and some of them is that, and some of them are engineering. So I don't think that what we see on our plate now is uncommon. It's higher than usual, but I think we've been more aggressive than usual in capital plans.
Yep. Okay, anything else? All right, next on the agenda tonight is reviewing the American Rescue, the ARPA funding request, evaluation criteria, and the process. Do we have any updates on this from our last meeting, Mr. Alonso?
No, there was no request to change it. It was distributed to the board for their review.
Yep, as I recall, thank you for that. All right, so we all have this in our drive, I think it's from last week on the 1st.
Yep.
So, and this was so we had the request, we also had the criteria that we went over. Has everyone had the chance to kind of look at this? Are we in a position at this meeting to be able to talk about this in more detail? What are the board's thoughts on this?
Let me just get a clarification. Are you saying talk about the rating criteria or talk about actually applying rating criteria to the requests?
No, the rating criteria. Just if we've all had the chance to look at it, if we can walk through it, kind of what are our thoughts about it. So why don't we go ahead and pull it up, and we can kind of walk through this and see what our thoughts are.
Like it's not in here.
Last week,
Okay.
under ARPA request.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
All right. So are we prepared to talk about this tonight?
I am personally, if need be.
I can tell you that I have reviewed it, so I'm prepared to talk about it.
All right. So what I like to do is I like for us just to walk through this criteria, and then and let's just go kind of section by section as we go through this. It was presented last week, and I think the objective tonight is to confirm or modify that this is a criteria that we're gonna utilize. So effectiveness of government is criteria number 1. State federal mandate, does a request address a current or foreseeable state or federal regulatory or legal mandate? So I think we all can. Are we sharing this on the screen? So effectiveness of government is number 1. Number 2 is effective capital investment or operating costs and revenues. Community contribution And then the last part of this is one-time expense. So Tom, perhaps I'm going to go to you. Can you walk through how we would apply this as a criteria?
So I've removed the scoring that was on here from the capital plan, but each one of these, like under effectiveness of government and the 5 subsections, there would be a scoring, a rating of, 1 to 10. 1 being not important, 10 being the most urgent, or it meets the highest part of that specific subset. And then everybody would go through every request and tally up the score for each of these items. And therefore, you'd get a numeric number to at least be a starting point to rank where these, both for any individual and then collectively as a body, how we felt these as a priority.
Okay.
That's how it's used in the capital planning. I see it being similar here. It doesn't have to be 1 to 10, it could be 1 to 5. And, not everything has to be the same scoring, so some may weigh greater than others. I mean, I leave that as part of the discussion.
All right.
I removed the scoring because the scoring was really obtained through many years and iterations on capital planning, but although this is similar, it's not identical to capital planning, so I figured we may want to revisit that and do our own scoring methods.
Okay. And how does this, what would the process be then? So it would be to implement some form of scoring method using these criteria? Would that kind of be the process?
Right.
All right.
Are we going to do something similar to capital planning then and have everyone come and present at meetings their requests?
That's into the
Because then
process
the-
of it, so that's up for us to discuss.
This will be another capital plan, basically, but presented to us. Is
So
that
that's
basically
for us
what
to
we're doing?
decide and for us to discuss in terms of process. Is that what you'd like to see?
Not really. I don't really think so, no.
Okay. All right. I'll make that process note. After our last meeting, what I was going through this, Tom, what I was a little concerned about is that we're going to end up with a prioritization similar to the capital plan. And as I looked at like some of the requests that we've received and trying to figure out, well, how will, like, as an example, if we take the largest request from the Parks Commission, I think that was the most money that we got. And so using that as an example, right, and how that would plug in here, effectiveness of government, I don't think it has any effect on the effectiveness of government. It doesn't have,
I think you could argue that it adds or expands customer service. So customer service, recreation is a customer service that only the town and a collective can provide in a park, through a Parks Commission, through funding. So I think that, yes, that it would apply for E. at
Okay.
least.
And then, like, walking through, like, community contribution, that's pretty obvious. Effective capital investment on operating cost and revenue. Yeah.
But doesn't it also replace an asset? We would be improving an asset that we
You could make
have.
that argument too, right, exactly.
All right, so,
I can make all the arguments for that. Just for the sake.
so I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I'm as kind of a test, I was kind of plugging in scenarios or situations or like a couple of requests and just seeing how it would come out of this system, how it would score. And it seems as if public safety is highly prioritized in this rating scheme.
Well, it's only one subset, public safety. Public health is equally done. I think when this criteria was initially established, again, established over time, nobody sat down initially. It was really, everybody's like, well, we really need to have a score for this particular component of what a project could contribute to the town. Not every request is going to hit every one of these. And there's also, there's also the subjective factor. It's not a math problem,
Yeah.
right? There's no right or wrong answer to how we prioritize a list. Everybody on this board is probably going to prioritize it differently. They may be similar in many ways, but some people are going to, think about one request higher than another for different reasons, and that's fine. And then, but at least you start with someplace, and you can lobby to make it higher or lower, and say, hey, I want people on the board to consider this. This is what we do in the capital plan. So you start out with something that is at least based on an objective score, at least within an individual. Then you do the collective, and then people can say, hey, why is this collectively so low? I think it should be higher because of, and then you just make your case.
Okay. So,
We could also move community contribution up to number 1 and bump effectiveness of government down a
Well, they're not in any priority.
Oh, okay.
They're equally.
Because that's
Again,
what it kind of looks like, and,
they're attributed to score. These are just categories,
okay,
right? So it doesn't matter how you swap them around. They're going to
okay.
get scores.
I was just wondering if they were in any particular order. They're
No,
not then.
no,
So
they're not in
effective,
any particular
like,
order.
it doesn't matter if they're more effective for government and community
That's correct.
contribution.
It's-
Okay,
Right. They're not in, the list is just the way they were listed.
okay,
okay.
because I think we should focus on community contribution.
And the last 5, without Roman numerals, were something that the town manager and I both thought would be good additions. These are not things that we use in capital plan,
Yeah.
at least not directly.
I would not prioritize effectiveness of government with ARPA funds. I just don't, I wouldn't do that, personally. I don't know if we should even evaluate that. I think that generally, there's a lot of, we don't, so I'll stop there. And then effect on capital investment on operating cost and revenue, I think that that's really helpful. But the effect on, like I said, I would be in favor of kind of scrapping altogether number 1.
Yes, I agree.
I don't particularly understand the reasoning.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, if we can use the money to replace an asset, why wouldn't we use it for that?
Yeah.
Frankly, I don't understand why we're getting all bent around the axle on the ARPA funding when I haven't been told otherwise why we couldn't use it to replace some of the funding we've already designated for the capital plan. That way, it gets expended in the time frame, and then we have extra money within the town budget that we can use at whatever time frame that we want. We're not locked into the ARPA time frame by 2026. We just had a discussion that the town is kind of at its limit in terms of what it can implement, and now we're talking about implementing several million more. To me, let's allocate this money on stuff that we already have, and then put that money we save into savings for a rainy day fund or future capital investments when we can effectively administer those.
Because our list is 40, and then we have another capital plan right now that people are meeting about, right? And that we're going to approve.
But we
at the
have to
next town
spend
meeting.
it by, not appropriate it by, right?
We have to, what's the term? Commit it by December 31st of '24.
Right.
Expend it entirely
By
by
26.
December 30 of '26.
Right. So I'm not, I think your plan is a good one, Todd. So I just think we have to do it with things that we can order as opposed, just like the chair was going over with the previous agenda item.
Right.
We can't do it for things that are going to linger over years. We need to put them on things like, we need new police cars, so let's buy the police car. And I think putting that money, using the ARPA funds for that and putting the other money aside in a fund that we use for those, knowing that we're going to use it for those, I think takes a lot of the time burden away from us.
Well, and then we can continue to use the capital planning committee and the careful process they go through to prioritize those things for the town. And if there's something additional that we might be able to include in that, say something comes up, a bridge replacement, something that wasn't initially is unexpected comes up, then maybe, hey, we have this extra money we saved, we can include that or start that. Or if we want to fund Marshall Park or something like that, say, you know what, we have the money to do that, but we go through the careful process of capital planning. Instead of just putting it on the board, we can get input from everybody. I don't see why we would take it, contemplate expending money outside of the process. I think we have a good process. Not foolproof, but it's a pretty good process that we go through.
No, I fully support that idea. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think I would have to think about that a little more, Todd. You know, I saw this in my head as a fully separate process of an opportunity for the town to fund things that maybe ordinarily would not be funded by the capital process. And so I think I'm looking kind of for something that doesn't mirror capital, but kind of does the opposite of what they would prioritize. And I think that there's an opportunity to, you know, like there, for example, you know, with the amount of funds, you know, if something I've been saying for a while, like solar panels on the old dump, right? That's going to require substantial investment on the front end. That would likely eat up the full capital plan in any given year, right? And so I think that's why it becomes, for me, an opportunity. And then also, it's how these funds are designated that we have a lot more flexibility if we keep it how they were given. And so that way the select board has the ability to allocate them or appropriate them rather than going through a full town process. So that was kind of, I think, my thought on it as well. And then why I think I'm not as keen on effectiveness of government is I think that as I think about kind of the point of ARPA, I mean, you know, and this is not a criticism to the town manager as much as it's a comment on the status of things, there are no ways to objectively measure the effectiveness of our government. I think that we rely on word of mouth. I think we rely on experience. It's a very subjective experience. So I don't see, I think the phraseology effectiveness of government, you know, should be tied to some form of metric of how are you measuring the effectiveness of government. And without metrics, you know, that's why I don't know if, for me, if that's an area where I would commit ARPA funds unless it was to develop metrics to measure the effectiveness of government. But quite frankly, I mean, my experiences in the last couple of months, I've been rather upset. It has not been pleasant. So.
Upset about?
No, outside of meetings, just my interactions with government, not, Heather's always great and she knows that. But it's challenging, you know, sometimes. And I think that there is a need for some measures to be put in place. So I think that that's why I naturally have some kind of resistance to allocating ARPA funding towards government if there are other opportunities that are not about the effectiveness of government, but are, like I said, Marshall Park, you know, that certainly seems like a project, you know, I think the majority of the requests we got are great requests, you know, and I think we could probably evaluate them differently. Maybe that's where I don't think most of them have anything to do with effectiveness of government.
Well, again, you're choosing one criteria, but as I just reviewed our funding requests,
Yeah.
I'd say 80% of them would normally go through the capital plan anyway. They're facilities, upgrades, and everything.
Right.
And if we want to do this, I mean, there's nothing to say, because it's in full control of this board, that we can't do a hybrid, that we pull out the things
Yeah.
that would not go through the capital plan and say, okay, let's look at these. Which one
Yes.
of these
Yes, let's
can
do
we
that.
address? We could do that.
Yeah,
I would
maybe
prefer that's what I would do.
yeah, maybe
Because all
that's,
the others could go through capital, yes.
yeah, I think you articulated that very well.
Yes,
'Cause I
thank
think
you,
that
Tom.
that's aligned with kind of what I'm thinking, which is we want to hit those things that wouldn't get hit.
Right.
Normally,
Yeah,
that we don't have funds for.
yeah.
These are
And then if we can,
different.
and then with the
Not
remaining
necessarily,
balance.
not necessarily fund everything that
No,
doesn't
not
fit
at
the
all.
capital.
Not at
but
all. Not at
Evaluate
all.
those
Yes.
differently, because
Yes.
they wouldn't normally be evaluated by capital.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, we could do that.
okay. So how do we tie that into a process?
This process.
Yeah.
You have to separate the list into two lists.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
The request list into two lists.
All right.
And then the ARPA list that I put together, which was based on capital plan, would not be used for that. We would have to develop, I
Something
don't know, I don't even know what kind of list what kind of criteria you'd be looking for.
All right. So kind of the non-traditional versus the traditional list. So breaking that list further down.
And like I said, there aren't many.
Okay.
There are things like food pantry assistance, COVID-related expenses, regional business investment fund. These are things that the capital plan would not go through. Hazard pay for front-facing staff would not go through that. Mental health co-response clinician. So those are the ones that I looked
Yeah.
at that wouldn't go through that.
Right.
Everything else in this plan would normally go through the capital
right.
plan anyway.
So we would separate from the capital basically and non-capital, because it sounds like that's what it boils down to. I mean, I guess they're all
Right.
considered capital, but the
But no,
non.
but capital,
Yeah.
things that the capital planning process would capture,
Yeah,
with that, not given ARPA funds, they would have to go through that process. And then ones that would never come to the capital plan.
yeah,
And I don't know where they would go, because they're initiatives that are outside the scope of our normal capital planning requests.
they would go in ARPA fund.
Right. They would go into the rescue plan.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, yes,
There you go.
yeah.
Why not?
all right.
Is it rescue or recovery? I don't even remember. It's been so long.
Recovery, I think.
Recovery.
Yeah.
All right. And to the town manager, something that we had, that Mr. Selectman Dwyer mentioned tonight, which is using the funds kind of to buy us more time. And that kind of, not that that's directly what he said, but I'm paraphrasing. So using the funds to buy us more time. From your perspective, what does that look like? How do we do that?
So if nothing's been expended for a particular project, that would be just a reappropriation of those funds at the next annual town meeting. And we officially commit those funds for that project. Say it's, one of the trucks for DPW. For
Okay.
purchase.
We could potentially, I'm just playing out a scenario here, but we could potentially put two articles for capital on the annual town meeting. One that uses as its funding source ARPA funds, right? And one that we fund ourselves.
Well, you don't need to vote at town meeting for ARPA. This
No, I
is-
know that.
yeah.
Okay, but,
This is
Okay.
just a select board decision at a regular meeting.
okay, yeah, so then we wouldn't
Yeah.
even need a capital plan necessarily, except for things that may linger as far as taking time.
Okay. All right.
We just want to make sure our timelines align with ARPA timelines.
And the one thing I would caution, because I think we're all in alignment here. We obviously do not want to lose any of the money that we have from ARPA. So we have to have a list of things that, if things get down to crunch area, we just can appropriate and say, okay, we're going to do this then.
Yep.
Because we haven't come to other decision. So
Okay. I think as a next step, what I can do is I can take these criteria and I can roll them into a process, because I think that we are generally in agreement on the criteria. I really like the additional questions that were asked. And I'll figure out a way. It sounds as if we're mixed on effectiveness of government, and so I'll find a way to incorporate the best of that into a process. And then so when we meet again, or prior to us meeting again, I will, or the day of, whatever the rules are, I'll distribute that out to the board.
All right, if I could, just, Mr. Chair, I think up to this point, there's been a 50-50 split, because I haven't spoken on the effectiveness of government issue yet. I think up to that point, there was a 50-50 split. There was Mr. Alonso and Mr. Dwyer, who wanted to keep it in, and Select Board Member Shiroka and yourself, who maybe, am I accurately describing that, maybe didn't want to keep it in? I don't see the point in not having it be a criteria. It may not apply to a certain request. It may be inapplicable, but there may be, so when you're tallying, if we're assigning points to these things, maybe some proposals earn their points in these other categories, and effectiveness of government is just not even applicable, but maybe other ones, effectiveness of government is highly applicable, and that's where that proposal earns its points. So for purposes of cross-comparing and quantifying in some way a prioritization scheme, each proposal should have available to it criteria that are applicable to where it can earn its points for recognition.
Yeah.
So.
I follow you. I think that the idea that I have is, I think as we evaluate the effectiveness of government criteria, it seems as if some of this is kind of internal. Is that it's an internal, how it reads to me is an internal look that says, what can I do in my role to make my role more effective? And so, and that's kind of, and that's how I think the government should be looking at itself, and how the town manager and department heads should be evaluating their roles is looking at, what can I do to be more effective? But when I think about effectiveness of government, I think of it from the resident perspective, not the staff perspective, which is, all those things that measure, when you interact with government, are you able to get an answer or a result that meets your needs? And so I would be more in favor of things that focus on that side of the equation, which is how are we measuring any of that? How do we evaluate that stuff? Because it really is a resident perception about, is government effective? It's those type things that I would prioritize, not that kind of internal, this is what I can do to be better. I think we need to add some metrics, is what I'm kind of getting at. But we can't add metrics unless we do it by policy, or the town manager takes it on, and I'm not looking to take on that task. That's far bigger than what I'm trying to do. So, and that's why, so that's kind of where my perspective is looking at it from the resident perspective of, of how we evaluate that stuff. So, all right. I will utilize these criteria. I will incorporate them into a process, and then I will come back to the board with a process that kind of outlines how we're going to implement these criteria. And it sounds as if we know the back end of this is going to be, if we have money unexpended by this date, that we're going to reallocate to things that may have already been appropriated in the capital plan. All right.
If I could also, just for my own clarity, and maybe this is premature and this is what you're going to come back with, this kind of thing, but let's just say that the process is going to involve a 1 to 5 assignment of values to these various criteria. Do you picture us individually and then collectively adding it up, assigning values to, for example, the overall category effectiveness of government, assigning just a number to that, or do you actually see going through evaluating A, B, C, D, and E on a scale? Do you get what I'm getting at?
Yes, and I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, but I'm happy to talk with you.
Okay. Yep.
So, all right. It sounds as if there's favor for the a rating system here. But I think we need what I would envision is we have a gate system. What's going to really make it into the gate? And then once it's in the gate, then how are we evaluating what got in? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Okay, so I'll commit that to the board, and I'll let me just give myself a due date here. All right. Okay. Any other discussion on this? And the goal would be to try to finalize this process in the month of December. Heather, would it be helpful for me to bring you into that process?
Um,
Would you like
yeah.
to be?
Sure, if it's up to you.
All right.
I definitely have, budget will be full swing, so I don't know what my time limitations will be.
Okay. All right, we'll figure it out. All right. Maybe one of the morning car rides.
Heck no.
All right. Any other discussion on ARPA? All right. Discussion on November 15th special town meeting warrant articles, consent calendar to the town manager.
The board already voted the consent calendar last week, Articles 2, 6, 7, and 9. I forwarded that information to the Finance Committee, just so we'd have consensus going into town meeting, and they have a meeting this Thursday. That's on their agenda as well. And update on motions. Something came to light yesterday. I had drafted the motions over the weekend, sent them to town council to review, and he came back with his review and the special purpose stabilization article. It was meant to be a raise and appropriation because we have excess levy capacity, and the warrant article is to transfer funds. He believes it's within the scope of the article, and he supplied a legal explanation of why, supported by town meeting time. But this is a decision that the town moderator makes as a call on whether it's within the scope. And currently, he's of the position that it's not within the scope of the article as written, so we would have to pass that over. The only reason this will come into play is if the Marshall Park article is defeated. So as long as the funding is appropriated under that article, it won't make a difference. We'd pass over that article anyways if the Marshall Park funding, if the funding is used under that article.
I did not understand in the email I saw town council's argument. Did town moderator give an argument about why he thinks it's out of scope?
Late today,
Because I would make the argument that
something.
certainly the voters are notified that we're looking to put money into it, and I would probably say that it seems unlikely that most voters would care where the source of that money is if we're going to put money into the fund. It's probably more likely they'd be interested if it was coming out of the fund than going into it.
He said he'd continue to give the situation due diligence, but what may distinguish this from cases cited is that Article 5 makes no specific reference to any specific project, et cetera. It gives the impression there's money available to transfer. So ultimately, it is the town moderator's call.
No, I
but,
understand that the town moderator runs the meeting, I get it, but
but
I just don't understand the
perhaps
logic
he'll change his
behind it.
mind and give it more thought, and, he was approached with this today, so he might need more time to consider. and
Fair
look into
enough.
it. And other than that, the only other article I did want to review, and if the board has any questions on the motions as they're drafted as well, would be the one regarding buyback time for the firefighters. I still, after looking into what would be entailed of what Worcester County would need to do to provide a estimated cost, it won't be, obviously, it's all built on assumptions of when people retire. But what we would need to provide would be a history, month by month, of all the payroll in excess of the 5 years that they automatically get of that on-call time, going back to the 90s, early 90s. And those are physical payroll records that are at TCP, so it's a very time-intensive project to undergo, putting all that data together as far as, because it would be, they're looking at shifts, which all our data is hours as well for on-call staff. So that's another calculation in itself, and knowing what, at that point in time, what a shift would be for an on-call person. So very labor intensive, definitely not something we could undertake by Tuesday, and get into Worcester County then to do, and for them to provide an estimate. And this is in speaking with the lieutenant, is requesting what the impact was when they got their automatic, the 5 years that by law they're eligible for, what the impact to the assessment at that time was, just to give some reference. So I've requested that information. I haven't got a response of whether that's even capable of doing by Tuesday. And I also asked if any other communities have adopted this local option, if there's any data on that they could provide, what the impact would be. But the union, the lieutenant spoke with the membership, especially someone who, there is a member that's looking to retire within the year, that would take advantage of this if it were accepted at town meeting. They would like it to be voted on at town meeting. I did explain that with articles that have a financial impact, I usually don't recommend moving forward until we have all the information, financial information, what the impact would be, and the affected boards who look at financial decisions, select board, finance, also like to see that and make a as informed decision as possible. But they think the impact would be minimal, as well as the possible impact of the overtime that this person that's would retire in the next year may have on the budget. So to weigh those as possible factors to a financial impact to the town. But did speak with them today, let them know that's where we stand as far as information, and that ultimately it would be up to the board what the motion would be at town meeting, whether to pass it over or to have the discussion on town meeting floor as far as acceptance. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
I will, if I may, Mr. Chair, I will reiterate that without any financial data to make a financial decision, somebody anecdotally saying, I think it's going to be minimal, doesn't help me to make a decision. I don't know what minimal means.
And I may have, I've summarized like.
No, that's fine. Again,
I don't want to.
this is not casting any, dispersions on people. I'm just saying, you're asking me to make a financial decision. It's very, very onerous for us to come up with the data, but it's important for us to come up with the data, because if we make a financial decision on an emotional subject, it's just not, I just don't think it's a great idea. And if we're doing this because somebody's going to retire in a year, very much like the homeowner that came to us saying, hey, my stuff is in storage and it's costing me a lot of money, so can you speed this up? And we're like, yeah, I didn't bring it to you, I didn't bring this to me late. You brought this to me late. I need to do my due diligence, and that's where I think we are with this.
Well, and that was my question, which is when did they make this request initially, the fire department? Because we heard it recently, but when did they actually make it? Was it as recent as we heard it?
Well, right when,
I
around the
remember
time the
reading it
town.
earlier, I just can't find it.
Opened, so
Okay.
August.
So prior to that, there was no inclination that this was coming down the pipe?
No, not prior to, so in August.
Okay.
Who's reading it?
All right, so it's kind of one of those, I'm gonna retire, I'm doing my calculations, and then this is, okay.
It's 1, 2, 3, where is it?
I don't, yeah, and it came forth not because, of a particular retirement. It came forth as, this is an option that towns can adopt. Other towns have done it.
It's a great question. Where is it?
It's not in here.
It wasn't pointed out specifically to benefit
Who's
one
voting?
person
Nobody
when it
else.
was submitted. I don't want to give that impression.
No, but I think we all understand, though, that when people
a
go to
vote pass over,
retire,
it says.
that they usually start looking at the finances a couple years in advance. And then they sometimes catch things that are problematic, like, wait a minute, what about this stuff? You know, and that's not like benefiting one person, it's just a situation in which you would catch that.
Says local.
Pass over it,
local-
yeah.
There was a mistake in my military retirement points from year one.
To see it, I got
I
it.
never caught it until I started thinking about retiring. And then I'm like, there was a mistake 16 years ago? And then by me waiting so long, it was like, how do I fix this? Because, you know, you got to go back and get 16 years. So that's, you know, so that, I think from my perspective, someone going through it is understandable why you would kind of catch certain things, so.
Is that Article 8?
Yeah, I think it's written.
Yes, it is
as-
8.
So we're going to pass over?
Well, that's the
Well, that's-
decision of the board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Decision of the,
Tonight-
Okay.
so you're looking for us to decide
Yeah,
tonight
yes,
to
yeah.
pass over article?
No, either pass over or let it go forward with, and debate it on the floor.
All right, didn't we recommend approval for 8?
No, we
No,
deferred it.
deferred.
All right.
Because we're waiting for financial data.
What would the board like to do?
Pass over
Heather says pass over.
it. Yep,
Yeah.
Well,
we don't have any.
so I'm torn about whether to read it or not. I mean, we didn't put this on. This was asked for us to put it on. I would probably defer to the person who wanted this article on there. I am going to vote, I am going to recommend that we don't approve it without any data. If they want to risk that we're going to do it and it may fail, that's up to them. But I mean, I guess we can,
Do you think they'll have more data at the annual town meeting?
I would hope we'd be able to undergo that, you know, research to calculate, you know, and provide that information to Worcester County of what the hours would be. But that would be a goal if it were passed over at special town meeting for the annual
read,
town meeting.
yeah.
But I don't think that's what the preference is of the person who brought it forth to me.
Okay, so what is the board's preference?
I told you. mine.
I agree with Heather.
I told
We
him
don't
that.
have enough information to properly evaluate it, and I don't think it could lead to a very long discussion on an article.
Right.
That may ultimately fail, that could very well pass at annual town meeting if we have more information, so I suggest I support passing over.
Yeah.
So 3 support passing, Mr. Alonso?
I would defer to the decision of the person who brought forth the article. But knowing that I'm going to argue against it. So if I was in their spot and I was the one who brought it up, if my intention was to get it passed, which I presume it would be, if I were them, I would remove it. But I'm not going to preemptively pass over it.
All right. I'm generally inclined to agree with you, Mr. Alonso, on this one. However, I don't think I would be consistent with my thoughts when it comes to APDC if I did. So I'm gonna just defer to the majority of the board on this, and I'll defer to the majority of the board. Sounds like the majority would like to pass this over. Are you looking for a motion?
I think there should be a motion on this.
Is there a motion to pass over Article 8? Is that the number?
So moved.
Second.
It is.
Any additional discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
I'm going to abstain because I don't have the information from the applicant whether they would want to pass it over or not. So I am not going to vote.
You have it from me, relayed from the person, lieutenant.
That they want to go forward?
They wanted to go forward.
Well, with that information, then I change my vote to no.
That's the lieutenant, that's who I was speaking of.
All right, we're going to take this vote again.
Yeah, that does change things a little bit, okay.
Hold on.
Was that not clear?
No, that was,
Okay.
no.
So the lieutenant wants it to be heard.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. They want it to be voted on one way or the other because this could affect someone.
Yes.
And so they, even though they don't know the amount, they're saying the amount's gonna be minimal. Okay. All right. So, there was a motion and a second. Is there a modification to the motion or a modification to the second? All right. Seeing none. As many as are in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
No. The motion fails.
That is going to be a very long meeting.
I think it's going to be a very long meeting for lots of other reasons.
I think that's going to contribute
For
a
one
great
other
deal
reason.
to that, the length of the meeting. I'm just putting that out there right now.
Well, while I don't disagree, I don't think our role is to make the meeting short by not hearing people wanting the town to make a vote.
All right, the board did not vote to pass it over. We will be discussing it.
Okay. I'll,
Can we make-
that motion will be drafted and be part of what's reviewed tomorrow. We have a pre-town meeting.
All right, I hope that they at least hear this part of the discussion,
let's-
hear the
can we
board's
write?
attitudes that we're likely, it sounds like a majority of the board is not going to support this. So,
No,
without
I
more information.
would like to say, and I know this is
Hmm?
the position of the board, because I don't want it to come across to those members of that union, that you're not supportive of the union themselves and their membership. It's just regarding a quantitative
Yeah.
number that you're looking
Right,
for.
it's-
So I just want to make that clear publicly, because I know
Yep.
this meeting
Yeah.
viewed, and that,
Well, I think it's clear, Heather, that the board's making no position on the merits of the request. It's just, we can't make a decision on a financial vote without financial impact, and we just don't have enough information. So, I think it's clear.
okay. I just want them to hear that
Okay.
as well.
Yep.
Yep. All right, anything else to the town manager? Oh, you mentioned the finance committee's meeting on Thursday
Well-
to vote on the consent calendar. All right, so we don't know where they stand on those issues.
No.
Okay. Were there any other articles you wanted to mention? I mean, APDC?
Yes, let's see. APDC, yeah.
Yes.
They had a meeting last Thursday that I attended. Anna Lockwood was also in attendance. And the facilities director. The facilities director had obtained some information that they had requested from their prior meeting as far as the cost for the restoration of the windows versus replacement. The two estimates weren't exactly apples to apples as far as quantity, but you could extract the numbers. Also, there was a question about installation costs. So as far as the replacement was a quote from Pella, they don't, when you get a quote from a window manufacturer, it doesn't include the installation, it was just product cost. So the facilities director is in the process of getting all of the additional information that was requested at that meeting. They voted not to rescind their prior decision regarding the windows.
Great.
So that's where we're at with that article, as far as the override article. And they also voted to move forward on their article that they submitted and not table it. So discuss that as well at town meeting. So,
Yeah, and that's why this is going to be a long town meeting. If we seem to hit APDC at every single meeting these last couple of years. Okay.
That's why attendance is low.
All right, so the board deferred on the motion with regard to overriding the APDC's decision. And then what the town manager just advised us of is although we met with Mr. Cullen Dwyer, who had represented at that time that he was interested in withdrawing the motion, the board at that time decided not to withdraw it with the expectation that they were going to pass this over. And now the decision is that they're not passing this over. Okay. So I do want to pause for a moment there and any thoughts on what we're going to do with that? Is the plan on our part just to have the conversation? I mean,
As far as the override article?
no, not the override. All their amendments to the code.
I think, like you said, to be consistent, like if the sponsor has brought forth that they want to move forward with that, to have the discussion on town meeting floor.
Yeah. Well, I noted that
But
was.
that's again, that's the discretion of the board. But I think they were given direction, 2 meetings prior, to come back with revisions.
Yeah, they came back with revisions that were
But then
contradictory.
There were questions, yeah.
Yep. And then they decided to withdraw. Yep.
They did not cite.
Oh, they didn't sign. The
Cullen.
chair, Cullen, said he wanted to. Okay. So we're going to have this article in front of the town, Article 13 of the AP, for the APDC, all right. You know, I appreciate Anna's comments earlier today. I met with Anna's husband a few weeks ago, Mr. Lockwood, to talk about APD, because I think it's not a secret that I'm not a fan of the APDC portion of the bylaw. And, you know, I gave Mr. Lockwood my assurance that my concern is not the APD portion of it. My concern is the APDC portion of it. Because I think that what Ms. Lockwood said today was spot on, which is that, you know, we have really good guidance that was designed by the planning board to spur some form of economic activity. What economic activity has happened here since this was passed? Can you get anything through the APDC right now and get them to approve it? No. So, you know, it seems like we've charted this rule to kind of spur this history here, make sure that we are true to it, and then we've created this board, in my opinion, that's just out of the bounds of the spirit of the law. I think the spirit was a quick, swift process, making sure we stay with certain looks, and what you have is a process that you really can't make any changes unless you are sticking with pretty authentic material. You can't modernize, you can't improve efficiencies, and if you do, it's going to take a whole lot of time on your part to get anything through. And I see that as so far away from the intent. You know, I have no doubt that if there was a motion to repeal the whole thing, it would probably pass. And that, I don't think, is what anyone wants. What people want is to modify the APDC portion of it, so that way when someone comes and says, hey, I want energy efficient windows at my house in the district, that you don't have to waste a whole lot of time to demonstrate why you can't refurnish them. And you know, this is, in my opinion, certain things need to be clarified. And so I look forward to changes to the APDC bylaw, but I am a little concerned that we're going to have yet another discussion on the APDC at yet another town or annual town meeting, and that will, you know, take some bets, going to result in the town voting no, because the town consistently hasn't been voting yes to those changes. So that's just my comment.
I will counter. I said I would caution that, you know, without a list of people who've come before them with certificates to alter, that I understand the chair's frustration with things that the town have brought forward, but I'm not so certain that the data is accurate with all the things brought to them from people in the APD. For instance, the old Dragonfly did get replacement windows for that building, and they are renovating the building, so things do go through them, and that's an economic development building. So I understand your frustration, and I'm glad you admit candidly your apprehension or distaste for the APDC portion, but I don't think that what you said is necessarily accurate. I think it may reflect on the town and the requests that we've made insofar as demolishing the old primary school and now this Ritter building request. But I don't know that it's a blanket statement across all residential and business CTAs that they have faced.
Thank you, Tom. I actually agree with you, that I'm speaking of our own experience, which I don't think has gone very well. And I am making some judgments about what I expect, that if we're going through this, then other people must be going through it too. But there's no actual evidence. You have to wait, unfortunately, for public comment. There's no actual evidence that that's really what's happening. So any other?
Thank you.
Any other comments on anything else with ARPA? I'm sorry, ARPA. I'm looking at ARPA, I'm thinking special town meeting.
I do have a request of the town manager. I see that 2 citizens petitions are being moved they're in our call motion. And I think it should be the impetus and the onus should be on the citizens who submit them to submit them in person and read them in person, instead of having the town.
Historically, the board has read the motions, and they come up to the podium to answer all questions and give presentation.
Actually, historically, that's not true.
Less
Well,
6
maybe,
years.
that is how far you
In
want to
my-
extend history.
my history.
Maybe in your tenure,
Yeah.
but I think that was changed because it used to always, citizens, again, since we have no control over citizens petition articles being on the warrant or not, and I think the onus should be on them to be there and be present to present the article.
We've contacted both citizen petitioners to who is going to be addressing this article, if you have anything you need in the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, then you need to submit it this week. So all that information is being addressed. It's just as far as the motion sheet. It's just the.
But we've had citizen petitions in the past where the citizens didn't come forward to move it. And I'd rather not address things that are citizen petitions if no one's there to move it. And I don't want to I don't want to be an obstacle in the way of doing it, but I don't think we need to read it into the motion.
I concur.
The citizen should be able to read it into the motion.
I'll just change those last two to, I don't know who will, at this point today, I don't know who is actually would read it.
Petitioner.
Well, she doesn't know the name of the petition.
Well,
Right.
we have both. We have all the petitioners.
Whether it will be one of the other Chapdelaine brothers.
Well, one of
or-
them. It doesn't matter which one. I mean, they're both doing
Yeah.
it together.
Or if they're having someone else represent them.
Right.
All right. Okay. Any other discussion on special town meeting going into next week, or the motions? Is the order of this, which I have not looked at, the order of the motions, is it just down the line and rotating?
Yes. yeah,
Okay. All right.
I think.
Okay. Next, we are into current business. So. And I went to, yeah, I have to say that later. Approval of minutes for October the 11th. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes of October 11th, 2022 as presented.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, we're going to go into our warrants and things that we have to sign. So first, we have our water. Now, I mentioned at last week's meeting that I talked about the water district. So the town does have a water department, but it doesn't have many people in it. It's a very small department that only services, I think it's just a handful of folks, and that is run by the select board, completely separate from the water district. All right, so we have right now a warrant in the amount of $11,105.40. And this is for the water department. We have a commitment, same amount, it's just a different form, commitment for $11,105.40.
It's a lot of.
All right. We have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $1,086,085.35. There you go. We have a payroll warrant in the amount of $987,785.27. We have a payroll deduction warrant in the amount of $700,074.97. Chairman's signature. Right. And then there is just a quick letter acknowledging volunteerism to the Council of Aging, to Jackie Dwyer. Yeah.
Signed, you can look at it.
Okay, any action items today? All right. I'll just publicly state that I talk to Heather. Heather and I talk often, and I usually go over all my action items with the town manager, and you are very responsive to all of them. We even share a note on the iPhone that we collaborate on, and we update. And so thank you, Heather, for being very responsive. I know that coming in as chair, I certainly came in with a whole lot of requests.
I won't deny that.
And really, you've been great to work with. You and Elaine have really been great. I know some meetings are a little harder than others, but overall, you guys are great to work with in terms of responsiveness and getting things done. All right. Any other action items for the town manager? All right. Yes.
Hold on, I don't know if this is the appropriate place to raise this, but maybe it's in public comment later, but the status on the lining of the roads, where does that come?
Yeah, this is a good time to mention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the wheels are getting squeaky out there again. People are inquiring, so.
Yeah.
No status updates, only to say calls aren't being returned that the DPW director is making to the vendor.
All right, so I just want to make it clear on the public record so that everybody knows you're doing everything you possibly can. You're getting on people. You're just getting, people are being non-responsive.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least a couple times a week, he reaches out to the vendor to get an update. Has reached out to other vendors in local communities and no response.
So you say you've checked with other vendors?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I know that we are prohibited from getting involved in the day-to-day. So this walks a fine line for me. But I also reached out within the DPW department that I work with, and it's just reconfirms, because we were trying to see if there's any vendors that we work with that we could refer to the town, and we've contacted everyone that Mass Development contracts out with and works with, and nobody is available. Nobody. And so I'm just confirming that while the town has made their efforts, we also used, the pockets of the Commonwealth who focuses on development, and we can't get a vendor either to assist the town.
I appreciate you undertaking that
Yep.
as well.
So I will make
take any, yeah.
I have two comments.
Any responsible vendor will take.
Two comments. One, the first one being the serious one, which is, I hope this is really going to be put into action, that no road work in this town can be done without lining up the striping as part of the project, not after, but as part of the project. Because, like I said, along the way, and now that daylight savings time has passed and we're back to standard time, drive on any of these roads in town that don't have striping, especially ones that don't have street lights either, it is impossible to know where the road ends, where the lines are, and all you see is headlights coming at you, and the other driver doesn't know either, and you're trying to navigate through passing each other with something that should be a very easy task. The less serious one is, if Lou Evangelides gets elected sheriff, maybe we should ask people what his work release program is and see if we'll just buy a whole bunch of brushes and paint for people. We may be relegated to that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Could I just add one more thing, and I don't even know if this is possible, but it's a serious problem anywhere where the roads aren't marked and the pedestrian crosswalks and all of that. But the particular one that came up recently that somebody inquired to me about was Townsend Harbor Road, which is particularly deadly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, especially because you get fog off the lake, and the poles are like literally 6 inches off the pavement. So I don't know if this is even viable. I'm just throwing this out there, and if it's even within the DPW's purview, or if it's whose purview, like even just like putting reflectors on the poles for now, until we get this solved. I mean, I'd like to see it solved a lot sooner than that, but somebody's going to hit a pole at some point, and I know you're doing everything you can, and nobody's responding, but it's scary. I don't want to see a tragedy.
Okay. Thank you to the town manager for continuing to work on that. During the warrants, we also did our fiscal '23 second quarter water commitments, as we read out, of $11,105.40. And that, again, is the town's water department, and generally, it's about that amount every quarter. All right, committee reports.
The school committee met last Wednesday, and they talked about the 3 plans presented by the group that, what is it?
Municipal Building Design Committee.
Did Brian bring it back to you
No.
yesterday?
No.
He did not?
Our meeting was canceled yesterday.
Oh, okay. So they're going to have pushback on all 3 of those. And they're going to focus on the renovation of the Brooks House for one of their programs to be relocated to. I'm not sure exactly what program they think is going to be relocated there, but that is what they're going to bring back to the committee. And that was a lot of their discussion.
Yeah, hey, that's great about the Brooks House, but I mean, the other 3, not so much so. What you got at, I mean, I'm sure, Brian did mention that they're going to be meeting again and that they're going to be consolidating the feedback to provide over to the select board. But what were the key issues with the 3 concepts? That they don't have a new building soon enough?
Well, they don't have a new Turkey Hill, that they have programs that will be displaced. They don't think that the after-school program and the extended day program can be housed in the schools that they would be housed in, like the primary school and Turkey Hill, because they don't think that the gym and the cafeteria are adequate areas for students after school and before school. So yes, they had a lot of discussion about those concepts.
Yep.
And that was my takeaway from really that they focused a lot of their attention on those concepts in that meeting. And things that really, there's nothing really going on right now. But that was the crux of their meeting, was those 3. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I'll follow up with Brian. Thank you.
Okay, well, he thought you were going to jump all over that you guys would think that the renovating the Brooks House is going to be a fabulous idea. You can watch it in the video. He was super happy and excited
Maybe I need to see
take that back to you.
Understand the context a little better. But, okay.
Okay. That's all.
When I gave my school committee report meeting, the thing I forgot to mention last week was that they discussed the Washington DC trip at the meeting that I attended when you weren't there, that I did present the concepts to them. They had initial pushback against the school programs going into the schools. And then they talked, in the portion of me I was there, they talked about the 8th grade trip this year. They're looking at, instead of being buses, that the kids would fly down. That the cost, basically, it has to do with the newer criteria for bus drivers, how long they can be driving a bus.
And stuff,
and
yeah.
that it becomes more complicated because of the distance, and that it seems more effective to fly. And then there's also the company that they are looking to sign up with, that there's also going to be some scholarship funds potentially available down the line, which I guess are normally made available for families who otherwise can't afford I believe they landed at a cost per student of $1,300.
What? Okay.
And overall, just significantly higher. And then the chaperone ratios, I think, have changed too. And then the chaperone would not, there would be no additional cost for the chaperones.
Not for anything, but have they deduced, the Acela train runs directly into DC.
Yeah.
Why don't they take a bus to the Amtrak in like New London, pick up the Acela, and you don't have to worry about bus drivers, and the cost has got to be under $1,300.
That's that is a cost. And what, do you know what company they're using? Are they?
I do not. I do know that there's going to be.
Same company that we had when 2020 was canceled and we didn't get all of our funds back?
I do not know. I do not know. But there was a dedicated, a part of it all sounded really good, but to the people of means, it sounds great. To the people of not means, I think that there was some questions there about how someone's forking over $1,300.
Just to get to DC.
Right.
That's the thing. If you're going to DC, it's a
Hyper-
6-hour drive.
Yeah, it's not that long of a drive. The bus drivers have been doing it forever.
Yep.
But
So-
I guess, I don't know.
Sounds like more like a round trip ticket to London.
Well, no, well, they made, in the meeting, you have to go back, but they did make a really, and I want to speak positive of it, I thought the person made a really good case for why they were going that route, that overall cost they were seeing, without going the flying route. I think the option was closer to 900, it was like
Yes.
almost $900.
Yeah, that's-
And that was the non-flight way, and then there was a whole bunch
way
of
it used to be.
rationale about
That's an ex-
about why, the basic, what it
It's a
boiled down
huge
to
jump.
was fly time, was that the kids get more time in DC.
The kids
instead
love
of
the
time
bus.
on the bus.
Okay, the kids love the bus.
And then I guess the chaperones don't love the bus rides.
Probably not.
Mr. Chair, I would say I think we're getting far afield
Yeah.
of what this board should be discussing.
Right, right. But in any event, they also got their MCAS results, and I did see an email going out that they'll be having extra help after school hours is going to be free for kids, because all of that test results, I think across the board, were not good. So, and that is to be expected when you basically have part-time school for 2 years. So,
It's across the Commonwealth.
it's everywhere, that's what I mean, and all the SATs,
Actually, I think
ACTs,
standardized tests across the country.
all of them, yes, I'm sure.
And no surprise, right.
Right, no surprise whatsoever, but they're going to be offering extra help after school free of charge.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, any other committee reports?
Have none.
All right.
Most of what I was going to bring up for council on aging has been covered in one form or another, either in the town manager's report. She covered the epilepsy fundraiser situation. Also, the patio, she updated on, well, indirectly in the capital plan, when we went through all of that, all of those items were covered. I will say that the paving is that going to be completed today? I know it started today.
Started today, yeah, it's not complete, because I went by there.
Yeah, so they were tearing that, even while I was there, that was in progress. So, the roof, it was mentioned. Other items of potential interest, this is more about me learning or sucking up information while I was there, is that we've already been designated, this town has already been designated a dementia-friendly community. I had to get a whole education on what all of this meant. But now there's a whole move toward becoming age-friendly, which nobody really has a great handle on what that means yet, but apparently it's not just facility, like infrastructure, like town-owned or public infrastructure and town services, but it's also sort of getting in with, businesses even, restaurants and things like this to make, I don't know how this gets done in an age-friendly way. In any event, it's very ambiguous, and vague to me right now. I'm just telling you what we talked about today. Maybe you can add some light to this, Heather.
Sure, so there's a big push as well by the state to not only become dementia-friendly, but age-friendly. We had a meeting 2 weeks, last week, Anna was there as well, from representing the parks. There's a lot of overlap between age and dementia-friendly, like, so things we're doing like complete streets, that's age-friendly, age and ability-friendly. Things, the ADA patio would be something that's age-friendly. So a lot of the things that we're already doing will count towards, things that we're, projects that we're working on or programs to become more age-friendly for our population, so young to senior citizen age.
Instead of breaking it down into factions, can't we just cut to the chase and can we be a friendly community?
So would Marshall Park fall under that?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
And by the way, age, it did come out that age-friendly doesn't mean just like being friendly to people over a certain age. It goes from like 0 to death,
Age is
apparently.
age. They didn't say old
The life
age.
cycle.
They didn't say old age, it's just.
So, yeah, can we just be friendly?
So
As long as we don't talk about politics.
we're working with MRPC. They have a grant to help us through December, the end of December, on trying to put together a plan. The first step is a survey that would be conducted, and that's yet to be kind of pared down. It's right now, it's covers a lot of ground that we're hopefully going to be able to condense into a digestible survey that people will actually fill out. If it's too long, we're not going to get a good response rate. So.
All right.
I could see something fresh.
I will say the capital planning met yesterday, and we had the presentations from the facilities director, who did a very, very thorough presentation on all the buildings and all the capital requests, not just for this year, but going out to 10 years. And I really liked his presentation a lot. It's the first time we've gotten a facilities one that's that long, and, from somebody who's really, that's been their primary focus, as opposed to somebody who's been in the buildings, like the chiefs or the schools or anything, but somebody who does the building. So that was good. And now that these are being recorded, which is the first year that capital planning is being recorded, people can watch them and watch the presentations. Our next meeting is tomorrow. We're trying to accelerate with our presentations. We're getting presentations from fire department, police department, and DPW. Those will be the last of our presentations, and then we will start going into the phase in the week before Thanksgiving. We'll go into our phase of evaluation and prioritization, and we'll do all the scoring, and then come up by the middle of December, we'll have a plan to go to the town manager. Finance committee meets on Thursday. They'll be talking about special town meeting articles primarily. And the Finance Committee Appointment Committee is unfortunately been inactive because we haven't got any applicants for the Finance Committee, even though we have 2 openings. So this is the time. If anybody's out there and you're interested in doing joining the Finance Committee, this is the beginning of the budget season. This is the time to get in. So you'll learn a lot of things about how the town is run. It's very educational, and it can be very impactful for the direction of the town. So please send in those oddly named talent bank forms that maybe one day will have volunteer forms.
December 6th, we'll be reviewing
Yes,
the
good.
appointments.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And just to add on to Mr. Lawrence, that presentation I put up on the website last night from the facility, so that's on the capital planning page, as well as the school one. So as they are presented, they'll be added to the website.
I see we got an updated one from the DPW today.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, well, he provided 2 presentations, one for infrastructure, one for,
But I think you gave, didn't you provide me both of them? But so one of them must be an update.
Right on the nose.
Anyway, don't worry about it.
I think I only sent it once.
Okay.
I should ask you for committee reports because you attend so many meetings. Do you have any committee reports to the town manager?
Sadly. Such is my life.
All right, from my side, let's see, Municipal Building Design Committee was canceled last night, so it was canceled, we also canceled the previous meeting before that. So we're waiting for feedback from the school committee and the planning board. And I received a communication today from the planning board that they are going to be holding a meeting this coming Monday, and then I need to get back to them because they would like for me to attend. And that's with, so good on that front. I also received some information about the environmental policy, and that came in from Richard Birch, which was a very detailed, thorough kind of comment as a follow-up to a previous comment. So I think, he had some really good constructive feedback, I think, to offer. A couple of things I think were kind of commentary that are easily explained. So that's all I have for committee reports. Our expectation is that as we go into December 6th and 13th and 20th, are going to be, again, tonight's meeting was a little elongated because of our 7:10 appointment that we didn't plan on when we kind of crafted the framework, but we will be focusing December 6th, 13th on all of our annual renewals, and then policy-wise, we're going to be picking back up the appointment policy first, so that way we can try to finalize that, and then the environmental policy second, and see if we can try to get that to a better point. My intent is not to finalize that one. I think we're going to need to take a little bit more time on the environmental policies, but to try to finalize the appointment policy. Next week, we have a special town meeting, and that's going to be at the middle high school at 7 o'clock in the auditorium. For the select board, this is our last scheduled meeting of the month. We will have availability on the 22nd if needed for any kind of catch-alls that come up between now and then, but at this time, the board is planning on taking off the last 2 weeks of this month. And again, we'll be at special town meetings. So next meeting is November 15th, special town meeting, that's next Tuesday, and the board will be meeting December 6th, 13th, and 20th. And we know that people at home who have alcohol licenses, they need to make sure that they follow the guidance that's been provided by the town manager and Elaine, get all your inspections done, and so that way we will be having those meetings, again, first thing in December to talk about that. All right, so 2 public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening from the town manager?
No public comment on my side.
All right, any public comments this evening from the public?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rogers.
I was going to start out with some levity, saying I'm here this evening to represent the ACDP. I got in trouble doing that one time. Dave Rogers, 82 Highland Street. I am here to get some clarity, if I could. I too watched last night's presentation, and I was really impressed. It was very, very good. A couple of comments were made that I want to make sure I understand. The discussion of McNally Park was brought up, and I support what I've been told by the chairman, and I don't have an issue with that. The question I have is, reference was made to the sign for McNally Park, and it would be given to the McNally family, which is fine. I just want to make sure that forever that field will still be McNally Park, McNally Field, because of the fabric of the Whalum area and the integral part and the contributions that the McNally family has made. So if I could be, guaranteed that would be happen, that would make me very happy. The second thing is that reference was made about the parking adjacent to the senior center, and where it was located or proposed, et cetera, et cetera. And I went down there this evening, and I want to make sure that the Connor Lawrence playground will not be impacted, but in any manner, shape, or form, because there's some fabric there as well. The Pearson family lost their son tragically, and they built Kids Kingdom, and then we took that down because of the splinters and all that, and it had a tragedy with Connor, God rest his soul. And a lot of people got together and made that, and it's just a wonderful addition to the town. So I don't want to see that, and a whole bunch of people don't want to see that impacted at all. So that's why I needed clarity on those two issues.
All right. It sounds like you have some questions or would like a response on.
No, I'm realistic enough to understand that, but I just wanted to broach the subject in hopes that, we can continue the status quo. And I don't want it to get so far along, they say, well, somebody made a unilateral decision. I want to broach the subject because it really is important to a lot of people from the fabric of what Lunenburg was.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Rogers, although this is a public comment, I think we can give you some clarification on some of this tonight. I know the town manager can speak to the plans for the senior center. My read of them was that there is no impact to the playground at all. That's going to impact the space between the playground and the building, but it will not affect the playground at all. Perfect. So that's confirmed. And then do you know anything about McNally Park?
Maybe the chairman can speak to that, but I know of no intent to change the name of that field.
Okay. I think that's under the guise of the Parks Commissioner's authority, not this
I
board.
think we can lobby that point.
Now, what we are looking to do is to improve the park. Oh, sorry. We are looking to improve the park. The shack there is having to be demolished. So with that, we're going to need to put the new building. So the question becomes, now that we have to do a project there, what else can we do to make the park even better?
Good.
And keep serving the people.
Okay, but we can continue to refer to it as McNally.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, just as we did with Marshall Park, everything that has a memorial there, we make sure as part of the design, that's included on the new design.
That's great. I want to take 2 seconds and 55 minutes and explain to you how important Marshall Park is to Lunenburg and its people. Mark Membrino, who graduated from Lunenburg High School and West Point, has a very, very successful commercial real estate company in the Midwest. And the name of his company is Marshall Park. That's how much, so it's these kinds of things that are the fabric of this community. So thank you for listening to me, and thank you for allowing the discussion outside of public comment. It's the first time in my life I ever heard him come up with an opinion.
I think my colleagues would say I have too many of them. Are there any other public comments this evening?
I have a public comment.
All right, Mrs. Scullin-Breedy, we'll call on you next.
Okay.
Ms. Lockwood.
So I really loved spending time with Mr. Rogers, so that's why I stayed. But since I was here and I listened live, the ARPA funds, one suggestion I have, since you guys talked about it today, is to not overthink the process too much. I have a feeling that if we get you all and make a list of priorities and just compare notes, you're probably going to find out that you're all probably like 90% on the same page about it. I worry about a little bit trying to figure out sometimes too much of a process, where it bogs down the execution of it. And so, there are actually processes like I think it's called the Kanban or the Agile method, which is more in-time decisions as you come up with a problem. So once you put all your ideas together and compare notes, you might have a very simple process moving forward because you might actually have very little disagreement. So, Agile is something that's in. I think Heather's husband is in software, so she probably has heard about it as much as I have. So that's a suggestion. One of the reasons I have for suggesting that is that, inflation is knocking on our door, and right now we have money that's just sitting in the bank and is not doing us anything, and the money is devaluing. I mean, as of last week, I think the federal government was selling 6 months bonds at 10%. That's unheard of. Like, money is losing its value if it's just sitting in the bank. It might be invested, but I doubted that is keeping up with everything. So let's not just get stuck too much on the process and just compare notes and see if there is actually a lot of disagreement to see if we need to come up with a very elaborated process. So that was it. So thank you.
Thank you, Anna. All right. Any other public comments? Mr. Scullenbrini.
Well, first of all, when I volunteered to be on the APDC, I didn't realize that I was entering into a world of such controversy. I actually thought that New Englanders supported historic preservation. But that said, I'm up to the challenge, and I want to say that on behalf of myself, and I believe the other commissioners, that we take our role of working with the bylaw very seriously, and we try to do our best to make sure that we're complying with the letter of the bylaw. And I think that, you know, when you have a complicated project, it becomes a bigger strain for that, you know, to materialize. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that I, as a commissioner, and I believe my fellow commissioners, take our role seriously. We know that there's rules and regulations. We know we have a bylaw, and we intend to work against that bylaw. The second thing that I wanted to say was that we decided to move forward because we think that with the warrant, with the article, because we feel that it's going to actually make it easier for the residents to comply with the process. You know, changing the application itself, shortening the overall time for a response, and then being more objective about making sure that people understand what the application requires for it to become complete, and that being on us to tell them that will make the process easier for the residents to comply with. You know, I think that if I was a resident, I would start with the application and then maybe go to the guidelines and then the bylaws. You know, so what we want to do is make this process easier. And if we can't make the case at the special town meeting that we're making this process easier for residents, then that's on us. But I think that we have an obligation to at least try to make it better for the residents. And then the last thing that I want to say is that I think that the article to rescind the decision that the APDC made on the CPA for Ritter is a classic example of a win-lose situation. There will be one winner on Tuesday, and there will be one loser if that goes to a vote. And the fact that there's going to be a loser is not good for the town of Lunenburg. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I want to publicly apologize to the previous speaker for my feeble attempt at levity. He obviously doesn't know me. It was in jest, and I apologize profusely. And I hope the committee accepts the sincere apology that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. All right, are there any other public comments from the public this evening? Thank you, Mr. Scullenbrini. Any public comments from the board?
Please show up at special town meeting.
All right, so again, special town meeting is next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Please arrive a little bit early. Voting will be using the snazzy new clickers, so it should be a little fast this time. And if you were there last time, you got to see them. And that's all that I have. Thank you to my fellow members for another good meeting. I wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. And I hope you're able to spend some good time with your family. I'll share a bit of sad news on my part. I lost my grandmother. She passed away last week.
Very sorry to
So,
hear that.
thank you.
Condolences from my wife and myself.
Yeah, it's the only grandmother I've had. The other three passed before I was born, so it's the only one I've ever had. And she's 94, or was 94, so she had a long life. So my mother's in town, and we'll have a funeral at the end of the week. So keep us in your thoughts. All right, and again, have a good Thanksgiving, everyone, and we will meet again on December the 6th. And until then, stay well, borrowing your lines here, Tom. And we'll see you guys soon. Have a good night.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, aye. We are adjourned at